चित्तूर शंकरन नारायण 11 जुलाई 1857 में पैदा हुए थे। चित्तूर शंकरन नारायण नामक दिमाग 11 जुलाई 1857 में पैदा हुए थे। मालाबार जिले में पालघाट में मद्रास प्रेसिडेंसी अंग्रेजों के समय में भारत में, और जो कि वर्तमान समय में पलक्कड़ नामक जगह है केरला राज्य में भारत में। वहाँ पर शंकरन नारायण नामक दिमाग पैदा हुए थे और इनकी मृत्यु हुई थी 24 अप्रैल 1934 में। चित्तूर शंकरन नारायण नामक दिमाग की जो मृत्यु हुई थी वो हुई थी 24 अप्रैल 1934 में। नारायण died in 24 अप्रैल 1934 एजेड 76। 76 वर्ष की आयु में चित्तूर शंकरन नारायण नामक दिमाग की मृत्यु हुई थी इन मद्रास प्रेसिडेंसी में ब्रिटिश इंडिया में। नाउ इन चेन्नई इन तमिलनाडु, जो कि अब तमिलनाडु में। पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ब्रिटेन का चित्तूर शंकरन नारायण नामक दिमाग की पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का नाम है इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस। ब्रिटेन का चित्तूर शंकरन नारायण नामक दिमाग का जो प्रोफेशन है वो लॉयर है। मतलब कि ये एक वकील थे, जूरिस्ट थे, और मतलब न्यायशास्त्री थे, एक्टिविस्ट थे, समाज सुधारक थे और पॉलिटिशियन थे। अकॉर्डिंग टू ब्रेन कार्ड वीसी गोपाल रत्नम, ब्रेन कार्ड चित्तूर शंकरन नारायण was a leader of the Madras Bar alongside C.R. Patta Virama Iyer, M.O. Partha Sarathi Iyengar, V. Krishnaswamy Iyer, P.R. Sundaram Iyer, and Sir V.C. Desi Kachariar, and immediately behind Sir V. Bhashyam Iyengar and Sir C. Subramania Iyer, and wrote Gandhi and Anarchy. Venkata Chetu Shankar Narayan Nair was born in the British Raj on 11 July 1857. Prominent family named Chittur as the son of Parvathi Amma Chittur and Mamma Yil Ramunnai Panikar of the Mamma Yil family in Mankara in Palakkad district. Venkata Chittur Shankar Nair got his family name Chittur through matrilineal succession, and father of Brand called Chitu Shankar Narayan worked as a Tehsildar under the British government, and early education of Brand called Chitur Shankar Narayan began in the traditional style at home and continued in schools in Malabar till he passed the arts examination with the first class from the provincial school at Kozhikode. Then he joined the Presidency College Madras in 1807, took his arts degree, and 3 years later secured the law degree from the Madras College. Brinkasa Chittur Shankar Narayan started as a lawyer in 1880 in the High Court of the Madras. In 1884, the British Madras government appointed Brinka Chittur Shankar Narayan as a member of the committee for an inquiry into the district of Malabar till 1908. Brinka Chittur Shankar Narayan was the Advocate General to the government and an acting judge from time to time. In 1908, when Chittur Shankar Narayan became a permanent judge in the High Court of Madras and held the post till 1915. When Chittur Shankar Narayan was part of the bench that tried Collector Ashi murder case along when C.A. White, then the Chief Justice of Madras High Court. Yes. Um, Brain called William Alling as a special case in his best known judgment. Brain called uh, uh, Chetur Sankaran Nair upheld conversion to Hinduism and ruled that such converts were not outcasts. Kachittu Sankaran Nair founded and edited the Madras Review and the Madras Law Journal. In the meantime, in 1902, the Viceroy of that time, in 1902, in British India, when called Viceroy Lord Curzon in 1902, in the time of Chitur Sankaran Narayan, appointed Brent called Chitur Sankaran Narayan secretary to the Raleigh University Commission. In recognition of his services, Brent called Chitur Sankaran Narayan appointed a companion of the Indian Empire by the King Emperor in 1904, and in 1912 he was connected connected when Kachitur Sankaran Nair became a member of the Viceroy's Council in 1915 with the charge of the education portfolio as member of the Viceroy Council in 1900 after becoming member of the Viceroy Council in 1915 uh, with the charge of the education portfolio when called edu- in charge of when Kachitu Shankar Narayan in charge of Viceroy Council education portfolio wrote in 1919 2 minutes of dissent in the dispatches on Indian constitutional reforms, pointing out the various defects of British rule in India and suggesting reforms. The British government accepted most of his recommendations. Jallianwala Bagh massacre and libel trial. The Jallianwala Bagh massacre, also known as the Amritsar massacre, that took place in 13 April 1919. A large crowd had gathered at the Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar, in Punjab, in British India, during the annual Baisakhi fair to peaceful protest against the Rowlatt Act and the arrest of pro-Indian independence activists Saifuddin Kichliu and Satyapal. In response to the public gathering, the temporary brigadier general R. In response to the public gathering, the temporary Brigadier General R.E.H. Dyer surrounded the people with his Gurkha and Sikh infantry. Uh, infantry and his Gurkha and Sikh infantry regiments of the British Indian Army uh, surrounded the Prince with his Gurkha and Sikh infantry regiments of the British Indian Army. Uh, the Jallianwala Bagh could only be excited on one side as its other three sides were enclosed by buildings. After blocking the exit with his troops, when called General Dyer uh, ordered his troops to shoot at the ordered when ordered uh, Brains called his troops of Brigadier General Dyer to heinous criminal Brigadier General Dyer given orders to troops uh, to shoot at the crowd. of innocents, continuing to fire even as the protesters tried to flee. The troops kept on firing until their ammunition was low and they were ordered to stop. Estimates of those killed vary from 379 to 1,500 or more brains over 1,200. Others were injured, of whom 192 sustained serious injury. Then called Chittur Sankaran Nayar resigned from the Viceroy's Executive Council, saddened by the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Uh, in the aftermath of Jallianwala Bagh massacre on 13 April 1919, when called Chittur Sankaran Nayar uh, then communicated to the editor of the Westminster Gazette, which soon published an article called the Amritsar Massacre. Other papers, including the Times, also followed suit. In his 1922 book, Gandhi and Anarchy, a band called Chittur Sankaran Nair wrote about following the events in Punjab with increasing concern. The shooting at Jallianwala Bagh was part of a larger crackdown in the province where martial law had been introduced. The region was cut off from the rest of the country and no newspaper were allowed into it. If to govern the country, it is necessary that innocent brains should be slaughtered at Jallianwala Bagh, and it was considered wrong by the bench called British uh, the to slaughter innocent brains at Jallianwala Bagh, and that any civilian officer may at any time call in the military, and the two together may butcher the innocent brains at Jallianwala Bagh. The country is not worth living in. A brilliant card, Chittur Sankaran Nair had said. Um, the book also condemned in his 1922 book. Other papers, including the Times, also followed suit. In his 1922 book, Gandhi and Anarchy, uh, Vinka Chittur Sankaran Nair wrote about the following events in Punjab with increasing uh, um, concern: a shooting at Jallianwala Bagh. The book of Branka Chittu Karan Nair in his book Branka Chittu in his book Gandhi and Anarchy, Branka Chittur Sankaran Nair also condemned brand called brand called Michael O. Dyer, also condemned brand called Michael O. Dyer. Also condemned brand called heinous criminal Michael O. Dyer, the lieutenant governor of Punjab that time, for his wrong role in the massacre of innocent citizens, prompting a libel suit against prompting a libel suit against brand called uh, Chittur Sankaran Nair. In 1924, Binka Chittur Sankaran Nair accused when called Dyer, Michael O. Dyer, of terrorism, violence, holding this brand called Michael O. Dyer, General Michael O. Dyer. Uh, General Michael Dyer was not the general. Michael Dyer was the lieutenant governor of Punjab. So, brain called Chittu Sankaran Nair in his book Gandhi and Anarchy also condemned when called Lieutenant Governor of Punjab Michael O'Dwyer for his wrong role in the massacre, prompting a libel suit against when called Michael O'Dwyer in 1924. When called Michael O'Dwyer accused Brent called Chetur Sankaran Nair accused Brent called Michael O'Dwyer of terrorism, holding him responsible for the atrocities committed by the civil government before the imposition of martial law. Reports of the depositions in the hearing were published daily in the Times. Brent called Michael. Brent called Chetur. Brent called Chetur Sankaran Nair. Brent called Chetur Sankaran Nair. नामक दिमाग ने जलियांवाला बाग हत्याकांड से दुखी होकर वायसराय की कार्यकारिणी परिषद से इस्तीफा दे दिया था. Brent called Chittur Sankaran Nayar's family says despite losing the case, achieved his purpose of having the atrocities brought to public attention. When Chittur Sankaran Nayar's great grandson Raghu Palat, who co-wrote the book The Case that shook the empire with his wife Pushpa, says the case helped spark an uproar for the freedom movement. After a 5 week trial in the Court of King's Bench, ruled 11-1 in favor of Lieutenant Governor of Punjab during in 13 April 1919. Um, Michael O'Dwyer awarding damages of euro 500 uh, and euro awarding damages 500 and 7,000 in costs to him. When Lieutenant Governor of Punjab Michael O'Dwyer offered to forego this for an apology, but Brenka Chetur Sankaran Nair refused and paid instead. Afterward, Brenka Chetur Sankaran Nair became a councillor to the Secretary of State for India in London between 1920 till 1921 and a member of the Indian Council of State from 1925. Brenka Chetur Sankaran Nair played an active part in the Indian national movement, which was gathering force in those days in 1897 when the first provincial conference met in Madras. When Kajitur Sankaran Nair was invited to preside over it the same year when the Indian National Congress assembled at Amravati. When Kajitur Sankaran Nair was chosen its president. In a most early address, Brent Kachitur Sankaran Nair referred to the high-handedness of foreign administration, called for reforms and asked for self-government for India with a dominion status in 1900. Brent Kachitur Sankaran Nair was a member of the Madras Legislative Council. His official life from 1908 to 1921 interrupted his activities as a free political worker. In 1928, Kachitu Sankaran Nair was the president of the Indian Central Committee to cooperate with the Simon Commission. Kachitu Sankaran Nair the committee prepared a well-argued report asking for dominion status for India when the vice when the when uh, the committee prepared a well-argued report asking for dominion status for India when the vice-regal announcement came granting dominion status as the ultimate goal for India. When Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair retired from active politics and died in 1934, aged 77. When Chittur Sankaran Nair as an executive councillor uh, in Viceroy Executive Council. in 1919. When Chittur Sankaran Nair was married to Palat Kunhi Mala Amma or Parvati Amma at a young age according to the traditions of matrilineal lineage of Nair aristocracy of the time. When Chittur Sankaran Nair predeceased uh, uh, wife of Chitu Sangran Nair, Bharat Kunhi Malu Amma or Parvati Amma predeceased him in 1926 during a pilgrimage to the holy temple of Badrinath in present-day Uttarakhand. The couple had six children. Their eldest daughter Parvati Amma uh, 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 and, this couple in which husband was Chentur Sankaran, counselor in executive council of Viceroy Chetur Sankaran Nair, uh, uh, British. Uh, was married to Kuni Malu Amma or Parvati Amma at a young age, according to the traditions of matrilineal lineage of Nair as aristocracy of the time. His wife, Palat Kuni Malu Amma, also called Parvati Amma, predeceased him in 1926 during a pilgrimage to the holy temple of Badrinath in present-day Uttarakhand. The couple had six children. Their eldest daughter, Parvati Amma, later Lady Madhavan Nair, married her cousin. Married her cousin, cousin C. Madhavan Nair, a legal luminary and a judge of the Privy Council. They lived on a large estate known as Linewood in Chennai. Within this property, in the area now known as Lady Madhavan Nair Colony or uh, 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 Mahalinagapuram is situated near the Ayappan Guruvayurappan temple, the land for which was donated by Lady Madhavan Nair. There are still many roads bearing names of the house, Linewood Avenue, mm, and of the children of Sir and Lady Nair, Bharat Narayani Amma Road, Bharat Sankaran Nair Road, Bharat Madhavan Nair Road, brain called Saraswati Amma, aka Anu Ujai. The youngest daughter was married to the eminent diplomat KPS Menon. Their son, also called KPS Menon, and grandson Shiv Shankar Menon were also diplomats who served as a foreign secretary. Brain called Shiv Shankar Menon also served as India's fourth national security advisor. Their only son, R.M. Palat, was also a noted politician in his own right. A daughter was married to Amy Candith. Their son, Lieutenant General Kunhi Raman Palat Candith, was the Western Army commander during the Indo-Pakistan violence of 1971 and the liberator of Goa. Candith's nephew and Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair's great-grandson, Anil Menon, is a NASA astronaut. Another daughter was married to M. Govindan Nair. Another daughter was married to T.K. Menon. Biranka Chittur Sankaran Nair's grand-nephew, V. M. Nair, was the oldest surviving Indian civil service officer in India when he died in 2021. His grandnephew, Naisi Ammokutti Amma's son, was K.K. Chittur, an Indian civil services officer who also served as India's first ambassador to Japan and was the father of Jaya Jetli, a politician and socialist whose husband Ashok Jetli was Chief Secretary of Jammu and Kashmir. Jaya's daughter Aditi is married to the former cricketer Ajay Jadeja. Another grand-nephew of Chittur Sankaran Nair's was P.P. Narayanan, son of Chittur Narayanan Nair, a distinguished World Trade Unionist leader in Malaysia. Maurice in 1984 introductory pages, popular culture involving Venkateshwar Sankaran Nair was officially uh, announced in January 2025 by Therma Productions and began production in December 2023. Starring Akshay Kumar as Brinka Chittur Sankaran Nair and other cast members including R. Madhavan as MC Kinney and Ananya Pandey as Dil Kill. The film, titled as Kesari Chapter 2, was released on 18 April 2025 to positive reviews. The film was also based on the events of Jallianwala Bagh massacre. A movie involving Priyanka Chittur Sankaran Nair was officially announced in January 2025 by Venkat Dharma Productions and began production in December 2023, starring Akshay Kumar uh, as starting brain called Akshay Kumar as Chittur Sankaran Nair and other cast members include uh, uh, brain called R. Madhavan as MC Kinney and Ananya Ananya Pandey uh, 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 include R. Madhavan as MC Kinney and Ananya Pandey as Dilrit Gill. The film, titled as Kesari Chapter 2, was released on 18 April 2025 to positive reviews. The film was also based on the events of Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and this film uh, was also based on the events of Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and the name of the film was Kesari Chapter 2. A movie involving Chittur Sankaran Nair was officially announced in January 2025 by Brenska Dharma Productions and began production in December 2023, starring a brand called Akshay Kumar as Chittur Sankaran Nair and other cast members including brand called R. Madhavan as MC Kinney and Ananya Pandey as Dilrit Gill. The film, titled as Kesari Chapter 2, was released on 18 April 2025 to positive reviews. The film was also based on the events of Jallianwala Bagh massacre. The film was also based on the events of Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and this Jallianwala Bagh massacre uh, also known as Amritsar massacre, took place on 13 April 1919. A large crowd had gathered at the Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar in Punjab in British India during the annual Baisakhi fair to protest against the Rowlatt Act and the arrest of pro-independence activists. Brains called Saifuddin, brain called pro-independence activists Saifuddin Kichliu and Satyapal. In response to the public gathering, Brigadier General Reginald Dyer surrounded the brains with Gurkha and Sikh infantrymen of the Indian Army. The Jallianwala Bagh could only be excited on one side, as its other three sides were enclosed by buildings. After blocking the exit with his troops, Brinkal um, uh, 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 Brent called Brigadier General Brent called Highness Criminal Brigadier General Reginald Dyer ordered them to shoot at the innocent crowd, continuing to fire even as the protesters tried to flee. Uh, the troops, the terrorist, the troops, the government, British government troops were became terrorists and kept on firing at on innocents till in Jallianwala Bagh, in Amritsar in Punjab, in British India. until their ammunition was low and they were ordered to stop. Estimates of those killed vary from 379 to 1,500 or more planes, over 1,200 others were injured, of whom 192 sustained serious injury. Britain was never formally Britain's called Britain has never formally uh, apologized for the terrorism for this wrong work of terrorism massacre of innocents, but expressed deep regret in 2019, but expressed deep regret in 2019. This Jallianwala Bagh massacre caused a re-evaluation by the Imperial British military of its role when confronted with civilians to use minimal force whenever possible. Although the British Army was not directly involved in the massacre, the Indian Army was a separate organization. However, in the light of later British military actions during the Mau Mau rebellion in the Kenya colony, historian How when Binnett has pointed out that this new policy was not always followed. The army was restrained with less violent tactics for crowd control. The level of casual brutality and the lack of any accountability stunned the entire nation, resulting in a wrenching loss of faith of the general Indian public in the intentions of the United Kingdom. The attack was condemned by the Secretary of State for War, Winston Churchill, as unutterably monstrous, and in the United Kingdom House of Commons debate on 8 July 1920, members of Parliament voted uh, 247 to 37 against called Brigadier General against Britain called Brigadier General Dyer for doing terrorism with innocents. The ineffective inquiry, together with the initial accolades for Dyer, fueled great widespread anger against the British among fueled great widespread anger against the British among the Indian populace, leading to the non-cooperation movement of 1920 till 1922. Background: Defense of India Act. During World War I, इसका British India contributed to. Okay. uh, this is a very serious case. Defense of India Act. During World War I, British India contributed to the British war effort by providing men and resources. Millions of Indian soldiers and laborers served in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. While both the Indian administration and the alliances sent large supplies of food, money, and ammunition, Bengal and Punjab remained sources of anti-colonial activities. Revolutionary attacks in Bengal, associated increasingly with disturbances in Punjab, were enough to nearly paralyze the regional administration of these. A pan-Indian mutiny in the British Indian Army planned for February 1915 was the most prominent amongst a number of plots formulated between 1914 and 1917 by Indian nationalists in India, United States, and Germany. The planned February mutiny was ultimately thwarted when British intelligence infiltrated the Gadar movement, arresting key figures. Mutinies in smaller units, bastions within India, were also trust in the context of the British war effort and the threat. From the separatist movement in India, the Defense of India Act of 1915 was passed, limiting civil and political liberties. President Michael O'Dyer, then the Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, was one of the strongest proponents of the uh, uh, Defense of India Act. Uh, uh, in no small part due to the Ghadarite threat in the province. Through the Rowlatt Act, the costs of protracted war in money and manpower were great. High casualty rates in the war, increasing inflation after the end, compounded by heavy taxation, the deadly 1918 pandemic, and the disruption of trade during the war escalated human suffering in India. The pre-war Indian nationalist sentiment was revived as moderate and extremist groups of the Indian National Congress ended their differences to unify in 1916. The Congress was successful in establishing the Lucknow Pact, a temporary alliance with the Indian All India Muslim League, British political concessions, and the White House India policy. And after World War I began to change with the passage of Montague Chelmsford reforms in Mintomony reforms in 1909, Montague Chelmsford in 1917. Church routed 1922, Taliban 1930, Mountbatten Plan 1947, Simon Commission 1920, Above 1907 came to India in 1928, and Dani March 1930, Gandhi in fact in 1931. So, Montague Chelmsford reforms meant to Montague Chelmsford 1970, Church routed 1922, Taliban 1930. And Mountbatten Plan 1947. Montague Chelmsford reforms, which initiated the first round. Montague Chelmsford reforms, which initiated Montague Chelmsford reforms, which initiated the first round of political reform in the Indian subcontinent in 1917. However, this was deemed insufficient in reforms by the Indian political movement. Mahatma Gandhi, recently returned to India, began emerging as an increasingly charismatic leader, and whose leadership civil disobedience movements grew rapidly as an expression of political unrest. Recently crushed Ghadar conspiracy, the presence of Raja Mahindra Pratap's Kabul mission in Afghanistan, with possible links to Bolshevik Russia, and a still active revolutionary movement, especially in Punjab and Bengal, as well as worsening civil unrest throughout India, led to the appointment of a Radiation Committee in, in 1918, chaired by Brinka Sidney Rowlett, an Anglo-Egyptian judge. It was tasked to evaluate German Bolshevik links to the militant movement in India, especially in Punjab and Bengal. On the recommendations of the committee, the Rowlett Act, an extension. Rowlett Act, an extension of the Defense of India Act of 1915 to limit civil liberties was enacted. The passage of the Rowlett Act in 1919 caused large-scale political unrest throughout India. Ominously, in 1919, the Third Anglo-Afghanistan War ominously, in 1919, the Third Anglo-Afghanistan violence began in the wake of Amir Habibullah's assassination and the institution of Amanullah Khan in his place as a reaction to the Rowlatt Act. Muhammad Ali Jinnah resigned. Prince Khan Muhammad Ali Jinnah resigned from his Bombay seat, writing in a letter to the Viceroy, I therefore, as a protest against the passing of the bill and the manner in which it was, and the manner in which uh, 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 and the manner in which uh, the passage of the Rowlatt Act in 1919 caused large-scale political unrest throughout India. Ominously, in 1919, the Third Anglo-Afghan War, even in the wake of Amir Habibullah's assassination and the institution of Amanullah Khan in his place, the reaction to the Rowlatt Act, the Prince Muhammad Ali Jinnah uh, uh, resigned from his Bombay seat, writing in a letter to the Viceroy, first, therefore, as a protest against the passing of the bill and the manner in which it was passed. and the manner in which it was passed tender my uh, resignation. A government that passes or sanctions such a law in times of peace forfeits its claims to be a called to be called a civilized government. Gandhi's call for protest against all attack achieved an unprecedented response to furious unrest and protest. Jallianwala Bagh in 1919, months after the massacre. Especially in Punjab, the situation was deteriorating rapidly with the disruptions of rail, telegraph, and communication systems. The movement was at its peak uh, before the end. At its peak before the end of the first week of April, with some recording that practically the whole of Lahore, the whole of Lahore was on the streets. The immense crowd that passed through Anarkali Bazaar was estimated to be around 20,000. Many officers in the in Indian Army believed revolt was possible and they prepared for the worst. The British Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, Brigadier Michael O'Dwyer, is said to have believed that these were the early and ill-concealed signs of a conspiracy for a coordinated revolt planned around May on the lines of 1857 revolt at a time when British troops would have returned to the hills for the summer. The Amritsar massacre and other events at about the same time have been described by some historians as the result of a concerted plan by the Punjab administration to suppress such a conspiracy. Brinkar James Housey Maini Dew Bowley is said to have posited a direct causal relationship between the fear of a Ghadarite uprising in the midst of an increasingly tense situation in Punjab and the British response that ended in the massacre. On 10 April 1919, there was a protest at the residence of the Miles Irving, the Deputy Commissioner of Punjab. The demonstration was to demand the release of the two popular leaders of Indian independence movement, Satyapal and Saifuddin. The demonstration uh, of protest at the residence of Miles Irving, Deputy Commissioner of Amritsar Miles Irving, on 10 April 1919 uh, was to demand before the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. A few days of Jallianwala Bagh massacre was to demand the release of two popular leaders of the Indian independence movement, Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichliu, who had been arrested by the British government and moved to a secret location. Both were proponents of the Satyagraha movement led by Gandhi. A military picket shot at the crowd, killing several protesters and setting off a series of violent events. Riotous crowds carried out arson attacks on British banks, killed several British brains, and assaulted two British women native crawling up street where Miss Sherwood was assaulted in 1919. All native brains were forced to man all native man brains for males were forced to crawl the Kurichahan on their hands and knees as punishment in 1919 on April Masala on 11 of Masala Sherwood and other elderly English missionary caring for the safety of the approximately 600 Indian children under her care was on her way to shut the schools and send the children home. While traveling through a narrow street called the Uchakuri Chan, she was caught by a mob who violently attacked her. She was rescued by some local Indians, including the father of one of her pupils, who hid her from the mob and then smuggled her to the safety of Govindgarh Fort. Uh, After visiting Sherwood on 19 April, local commander of the Indian Army Forces, Brigadier General Dyer, enraged at assault, issued an order requiring every Indian man using that street to crawl its length on his hands and knees as a punishment. Uh, we, local After visiting Sherwood on 19 April, the local commander of Indian Army Forces, Brigadier General Dyer, at the assault issued an order uh, requiring every Indian man using the street to crawl its length on his hands and knees as a punishment. Dyer later explained to his British inspectors some Indians crawl face to downwards in front of their courts. I wanted them to know that a British woman is as sacred as a Hindu god, and therefore they have to crawl in front of her too. He also authorized the indiscriminate public whipping of locals who came within lathi length of a police officer. And Colonel Sherwood later defended Dyer, describing him as the savior of the Punjab. For the next 2 days, the city of Amritsar was quiet, but violence continued in other parts of Punjab. Railway lines were cut, telegraph posts destroyed, government buildings burnt, and three Europeans murdered. By 13 April, the British government had decided to put most of the Punjab under martial law. The legislation restricted a number of civil liberties, including freedom of assembly. Gatherings of more than four brains were banned. On the evening of 12 April, the leaders of the Hartal in Amritsar held a meeting at the Hindu college Dhab Kataikan. At the meeting, Hans Raj, an AD to Pichliu, announced a public protest meeting would be held at 16:30 the following day in the Jallianwala Bagh, to be organized by Colonel Muhammad Bashir and chaired by a senior and respected Congress party leader Lal Kanhaiya. Uh, Lal Kanhaiya Lal Bhatia, a series of resolutions protesting against the Rowlatt Act, the recent actions of the British authorities, and the detention of Satyapal and Kijliu were drawn up and approved. After which the meeting adjourned. A massacre. The martyrs' well at Jallianwala Bagh, 120 bodies were recovered from this martyrs' well of Jallianwala Bagh as per inscription on it. Uh, 120 bodies were recovered from uh, this much as well at Jallianwala Bagh. 20 bodies were recovered from this what is well as per inscription on it. On Sunday, 13 April 1919, Brigadier General Dyer convinced a major insurrection could take place, banned all meetings. This notice was not widely disseminated, and many villagers gathered in the Jallianwala Bagh to celebrate the Baisakhi festival and to peacefully protest against the arrest and deportation of two national leaders, Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichliu. At 9 on the morning of 20 April 1990, the traditional festival of Baisakhi, Britain called Brigadier General Dyer, Britain called uh, uh, Britain called Brigadier General Dyer proceeded with several city officials in announcing the implementation of a pass system to enter or leave the city, a curfew beginning to at 20 that night, and a ban on all processions and public meetings of four or more persons. The proclamation was read and explained in English, Urdu, Hindi, and Punjabi, but many either paid it no heed or learned of it only later, while the local police had received Meanwhile, local police had received intelligence of the planned meeting in the Jallianwala Bagh. Uh, through word of mouth and plainclothes detectives in the crowds. The Marine Corps Brigadier General was informed of the meeting at 12:40 and returned to his base at around 13:30 to decide how to handle it. By mid-afternoon, thousands of Indians had gathered in the Jallianwala Bagh garden near the Harmandir Sahib in Amritsar. Many who were present had been worshipping worshipping earlier at the Golden Temple and were merely passing through the Bagh on their way home. The Bagh was and remains today an open area of 6 to 7 acres, 2.4 to 2.8 hectares, are roughly 200 by 200 yards. 180 meters multiply 180 meters in size and surrounded on all sides by walls roughly 10 feet 3 meters in height. Balconies of houses 3 to 4 stories tall overlooked to the Bagh and 5 narrow entrances opened into it onto it, several with lockable gates. Although it was planted with crops during the rainy season for much of the rest of the year, it served as a local meeting place and recreation area. In the center of the Bagh was a Samadhi cremation site and a large well partly filled with water which measured about 20 feet 6.1 meters in diameter. Apart from the pilgrims passing through Amritsar had filled up over the preceding days with farmers, traders and merchants who were attending the annual Vaisakhi horse and cattle fair. Because the city police closed the fair at 14 that afternoon, many of those who had been attending it drifted into the Jallianwala Bagh, further increasing the number of people's friends who happened to be there when the massacre began. Brigadier General Dyer arranged for an aeroplane to overfly the Jallianwala Bagh and estimated the size mm, uh, of the crowd, which he reported was about 6,000. So, however, the Brains Called Hunter Commission estimates that a crowd of between 10,000 and 20,000 had assembled by the time Brigadier General Dyer arrived. Brigadier General Dyer and Deputy Commissioner Miles Irving, the senior civil authority for Amritsar, took no actions to prevent the crowds from assembling or to disperse them peacefully. This would later be a serious criticism leveled at both Brigadier General Dyer and Irving. Mural depicting 1990 Amritsar massacre. An hour after the meeting began as scheduled at 17:30, Brigadier General Dyer arrived at the Bagh with a group of 50 troops. All 50 were armed with Decimal 303 Lee Enfield bolt action rifles. Dyer may have specifically chosen troops from the Gurkha and Sikh ethnic groups due to their proven loyalty to the British. He had also brought two armored cars armed with machine guns. Uh, However, the vehicles could not enter the compound. Uh, could not enter the compound through the narrow entrances. The Balabag was surrounded on all sides by houses and buildings and had only five narrow entrances, most of which were kept permanently locked. The main entrance was relatively wide but was guarded heavily by the troops, backed by the armored vehicles so as to prevent anyone from getting out. Without warning, the crowd to disperse and heinous criminal terrorist Brigadier General Dyer ordered his terrorist troops to block the main exits and begin shooting towards the densest sections of the innocent crowd in front of the available narrow exits where panicked crowds were trying to leave the Jallianwala Bagh. Firing continued for approximately 10 minutes. Unarmed civilians, including men, women, elderly, brains, and children, were killed. A ceasefire was ordered after the troops fired about one third of their ammunition. He stated later that the purpose of this action was not to disperse the meeting but to punish the Indians for disobedience. Uh, but to give but to do wrong work with Indians for disobedience. The following day, but to do crime with Indians for disobedience. The following day, Dyer stated in a report, I have heard that between 200 and 300 of the crowd were killed. My party fired 1,650 rounds apart from the many deaths that resulted directly from the shooting. A number of brains died by being crushed in the stampedes, pits, and the narrow gates, or by jumping into the solitary well on the compound to escape the shooting. A plaque placed at the site after independence states that about 120 bodies were removed from the well. Highness Criminal Terrorist Brigadier General Dyer imposed a curfew time that was earlier than usual. As a result, the wounded could not be moved from where they had fallen, and many of them therefore died on their and many of them therefore died of their wounds during the night. Casualties. The number of total casualties is following morning newspapers quoted an erroneous initial figure of 200 casualties offered by the Associated Press. News has been received from the Punjab that the operation mob has again broken out in a violent attack against the authorities. The rebels. Um, uh, Following morning newspapers quoted the number of casualties revealed the following morning. Newspapers quoted an erroneous, wrong initial figure of 200 casualties offered by the Associated Press. Has been received from the Punjab that the Amritsar mob has again got in a violent attack against the rebels were repulsed by the military and they suffered 200 casualties. The Times of India, 14 April 1919. The British government of Punjab criticized by the Hunter Commission. um, for not gathering accurate figures, only offered the same approximate figure of 200. Uh, Criticized by the branch called Hunter Commission to investigate the massacre in Jallianwala Bagh. And Branch called Hunter Commission criticized the British government of Punjab and for not gathering accurate figures, so only offered the same approximate figure of 200 when interviewed by the members of the committee. A senior civil servant in Punjab admitted that the actual figure could be higher. The Seva Samiti Society independently carried out an investigation and reported 379 deaths and 192 seriously wounded. The branch called Hunter Commission, based on their figures of 379 deaths and approximately three times that number injured, suggesting 1,500 casualties. At the meeting of the Imperial Legislative Council held on 12 September 2000, held on at the meeting of the
Imperial Legislative Council held on 12 September 1919. The investigation led by President Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya concluded that there were 42 boys among the dead, and the youngest of them only 7 months old. The Hunter Commission to investigating Jallianwala Bagh massacre confirmed the deaths of 337 men. Uh, mm, uh, 337 men, Vince of Middlesex, and 41 boys, and 47 young boys, and a 6 week old baby. And 6 week old baby. In July 1919, 3 months after the massacre, officials were tasked with finding who had been killed by inviting inhabitants of the city to volunteer information about those who had died. This information was incomplete due to fear that those who participated would be identified as having been present at the meeting. Some of the dead, this information. Um, in July 1919, 3 months after the massacre, officials were tasked with finding who had been killed by inviting inhabitants of the city to volunteer information about those who died. This information was incomplete due to fear that those who participated would be identified as having been present at the meeting, and some of the dead may not have had close relations in the area. When called Winston Churchill reported nearly 400 slaughtered, and or four times the number wounded to the Westminster Parliament on 8 July 1920. Since the official figures were obviously flawed regarding the size of the crowd, 6,000 to 20,000, the number of rounds fired, and the period of shooting, the Indian National Congress instituted a separate inquiry of its own with conclusions that differed considerably from the British government's inquiry. The casualty number quoted by the British Congress was more than 1,500, with approximately 1,000 being killed. Uh, uh, Brains called Indian nationalist Swami Shraddha Nand wrote to Gandhi of 1,500 deaths in the incident. Brains called British government wrongdoing. Brains called British government tried to suppress information of the massacre, but news spread in India. But news spread in India, and widespread outrage ensued. Details of the massacre did not become known in Britain until December 1919. Aftermath. This event caused many moderate Indians to abandon their previous loyalty to the British and become nationalist, distrustful, distrustful, distrustful of British rule. Brent called Brigadier General reported to his superiors that he had been confronted by a revolutionary army, to which Major William uh, to which Major General to which Major General William Penyon replied via telegram, "Your action correct, and Lieutenant Governor approves." approves. Brent called my Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, um, Michael O'Dwyer requested that martial law should be imposed upon Madras. Requested that martial law should be imposed upon Amritsar and other areas, and this was granted by when called Viceroy Lord Chelmsford. Thousands were detained in the consequent days, some being sentenced to penal um, transportation. According to brain card historian Harish Puri, at least 115 brains were killed by security forces in the days after 13 April. Both Secretary of State for War Winston Churchill and former Prime Minister mm, mm, and when called former Prime Minister H.H. Asquith, however, openly condemned the attack. Brand called Winston Churchill, referring to unutterably monstrous and Asquith, calling it one of the worst and most dreadful outrages in the whole of our history. In the House of Commons debate of 8 July 1920, Winston Churchill said the crowd was unarmed except with bludgeons. It was not attacking anybody or anything. Bludgeons is a club is a short staff of a stick. A club is a short staff or stick usually made of wood, wielded as a weapon or tool. Since history, there are several examples of blunt-force trauma caused by clubs in the past, including at the site of Nataruk in Turkana, Kenya, described as the scene of a prehistoric conflict between bands of hunter-gatherers 10,000 years ago. It was not attacking anybody or anything. When fire had been opened upon it to disperse it tried to run away, pinned up in a narrow place considerably smaller than Trafalgar Square, with hardly any exits, and packed together so that one bullet would drive through three or four bodies. The brains got people ran. Brains also got people ran madly this way and the other. When the fire was directed upon the center, they ran to the uh, uh, they ran. Uh, when the fire was directed upon the center, they ran to the sides. The fire was then directed to the sides. Many threw themselves down on the ground. The fire was then directed down on the ground. This was continued to 8 to 10 minutes and it stopped only when the ammunition had reached the point of exhaustion. After Brentford, Winston Churchill's speech, um, uh, Brent called Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill was a British statesman, military officer, and writer who was and also prime minister and was also prime minister of United Kingdom from 1940 till 1945. Again, from 1951 to 1955, for some 62 of the years between 1900 and and 1964, was a member of parliament and represented a total of five constituencies over that time, ideologically an adherent to uh, economic liberalism and imperialism, and was for most of his career a member of the conservative political party, which he led from 1940 to 1955, was a member of the Liberal political party from 1904 to 1924. Winston Churchill, and former both Secretary to of State for War Winston Churchill, and former Prime Minister and when former Prime Minister H.H. Asquith, however, openly condemned the attack when called Winston Churchill, referring to it as unutterably monstrous, and Asquith calling it one of the worst, most outrages in the whole of our history. In House of Commons debate of 8 July 1920, Winston Churchill said the crowd was unarmed except with bludgeons. It was not attacking anybody or anything. When fire had been opened upon it to disperse it, it tried to run away up in a narrow place considerably smaller than Trafalgar Square, with hardly any exits, and packed together so that one bullet would drive through the three or three or four bodies. The British peoples ran madly this way and the other. When the fire was directed upon the center, they ran to the sides. The fire was then directed to the sides. When he threw themselves down on the ground, the fire was then directed down on the ground. This was continued. It stopped only when the ammunition had reached the point of exhaustion. After Winston Churchill's speech in the House of Commons, member of Parliament of United Kingdom, House of Commons, lower house of British Parliament, um, member of Parliament voted 247 to 37 to 37 against Brian called Brigadier Highness criminal terrorist Brigadier General Dyer, and in support of the government. Uh, Cloak reports that despite official rebuke, many Britons still thought him a hero for saving the rule of British law in India. When Rabindranath Tagore received the news of the massacre terrorism by 22 May 1919, and tried to arrange a protest meeting in Calcutta, and finally decided to renounce his British knighthood as a symbolic act of protest in the repudiation letter dated 31 May 1919, addressed to the Viceroy of India and called Lord Chelmsford, wrote, I wish to stand shorn of all special distinctions by the side of those of my countrymen who, for their so called insignificance, are liable to suffer degradation not fit for human beings. The enormity of the measures taken by the British government in Punjab for quelling some local disturbances has with a rude shock revealed to our minds the helplessness of our position as British subjects in India. The very least that I can do for my country is to take all consequences upon myself in giving voice to the protest of the millions of my countrymen surprised into dumb anguish of terror. The time has come when badges of honor make our shame glaring in the incongruous context of humiliation. His writings of Rabindranath Tagore, uh, Disorders Inquiry Committee between 1919 to 1920, uh, Brent called Brigadier General and motivation. Brigadier General Highness Criminal Terrorist Brigadier General Dyer wrote an article in the Globe of 21 January 1921 entitled The Peril to the Empire. It commenced with India does not want self government, she does not understand it. Brigadier General Dyer wrote later that there should be an 11th commandment in India: Thou shalt not agitate. All that the cultivator and the factory worker want is just and clear laws applicable to all alike. He does not always know why his passions have been roused and whether he is being misled. Who is there to tell him but the Sahib? And now it seems that the Sahib is not allowed to tell him. He does not want an exchange of rulers, and he will not be desirous or capable of self government. Um, mm, uh, or not be capable of self-government or generations, and when self-government does come, it will not be the leaders of revolt who will rule. The very names of the of most of the extremists smell in the nostrils of Indian manhood. Self-government for India is a horrible pretense which would set the brains of the country at each other's throats long before beginnings of constructive work of constructive work were made possible. Under self-government, India would commit suicide, but our politicians would be guilty of murder as associates in the crime. Priyanka Gandhi will not lead India to capable self-government. The British Raj must continue uh, firm and unshaken in its administration of justice to all men to carry out the job as it has taken in hand. In his official response to the branch called Hunter Commission, which was investigating Jallianwala massacre that inquired into the shooting, brain called Highness Criminal Terrorist Brigadier General Dyer was unremorseful and stated, I think it quite possible that I could have dispersed the crowd without firing, but they would have come back again and laughed, and I would have made what I consider a fool of myself. Brain called Hunter Commission. Brains called Hunter Commission. On 14 October 1919, after orders issued by the by the brain called Secretary of State for India, Edwin Montagu, the government of India announced the formation of a committee of inquiry into the events in Punjab, referred to as the Disorders Inquiry Committee. It was later more widely known as the Hunter Commission. It was named after the chairman. It was named after the chairman, after the British chairman William Lord Hunter, former Solicitor General for Scotland and Senator of the College of Justice in Scotland. The stated purpose of the commission was to investigate the recent disturbances uh, um, in Bombay, Delhi, and Punjab about their causes and the measures taken to cope with them. The members of the commission were Lord Hunter, chairman of the commission, Mr. Justice George C. Rankin of Calcutta, Sir Chimanlal Harilal Stalwart, Vice Chancellor of Bombay University and Advocate of the Bombay High Court. W. F. Rice, member of the Home Department, Major General George Barrow, KCB, KCMG, GOC, Peshawar Division, Pandit Jagat Narayan, lawyer and member, Pandit Jagat Narayan, lawyer and member of the Legislative Council of the United Provinces, Brent Smith, member of the Legislative Council of the United Provinces, and Kasada Sahib Chada Sultan Ahmad Khan, lawyer from Gwalior State, HC Stocks, Secretary of the Commission, HC Stocks, Secretary of the Commission, HC Stocks, Secretary of the Commission, and member of the Home Department. After meeting in New Delhi on 29 October, the Brains called Hunter Commission took statements from witnesses over the following weeks. Brains called witnesses were called in Delhi, were called in Delhi and Ahmedabad and Bombay and Lahore, although the British Hunter Commission as such was not a formally constituted court of law, meaning witnesses were not subject to questioning under oath. Its members managed to elicit detailed accounts and statements from witnesses by rigorous cross questioning. In general, it was felt the commission had been very thorough thorough in its inquiries after reaching Lahore in November. The British Hunter Commission wound up its uh, 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 although the Hunter Commission as such was not formally constituted. After meeting in New Delhi on 29 October, the Hunter Commission took statements from witnesses over the following weeks. Witnesses were called in Delhi, in Ahmedabad, and in Bombay and in Lahore. Although the Hunter Commission as such was not formally constituted court of law, meaning witnesses were not subjected to questioning under oath. Its members managed to elicit detailed accounts and statements from witnesses by rigorous cross questioning. In general, it was fact that the Hunter Commission had been very thorough in its inquiries. After reaching Lahore in November, the Hunter Commission wound up its initial inquiries by examining the principal witnesses to the events in Amritsar. Hunter Commission held its official sittings at the Lahore Town Hall near Anarkali Bazaar. In 19 November, Britain called uh, uh, Britain called Brigadier General Dyer terrorist brigadier criminal of innocent Indians terrorist brigadier uh, General Dyer was ordered to appear before the Brains called Hunter Commission, although his military superiors had suggested to be represented by legal counsel at the inquiry. Brains called Brigadier General Dyer refused this suggestion and appeared alone. Uh, Initially questioned by Brain called Lord Hunter, the, initially questioned by Brent called Lord Hunter, Brent called Brigadier stated Brent called Highness Criminal Brigadier General Dyer stated he had come to know about the meeting at the Jallianwala Bagh at the at 12:40 hours that day, but did not attempt to prevent it. He said that he had gone to the Jallianwala Bagh with the deliberate intention of opening fire if he found a crowd assembled there. Brent called Brigadier General Dyer told the Brent called Hunter Commission, I think it quite possible that I could have dispersed the crowd without firing, but they would have come back again and laughed, and I would have made what I consider a fool of myself. Brigadier General Dyer further reiterated iterated his belief that the crowd in the Jallianwala Bagh was one of rebels who were trying to isolate my forces and cut me off from other supplies. Therefore, I considered it my duty to fire on them and to fire well. After after Miss after when Commissioner Justice Rankin had questioned Brigadier General Dar, uh, 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 so Shimanlal Sitchelwad inquired such Shimanlal, supposing the passage was sufficient to allow the armored cars to go in, would you have opened fire with the machine guns? Brigadier General Dias I think probably yes. Uh, um, so Brent Kasser Simonlal said in that case the casualties would have been much higher. Brent Brigadier General Dyer said wrongdoing brain called Brigadier General wrongdoing brain called Brigadier General Dyer. Highness Criminal Brigadier General Dyer said yes. Brigadier General Dyer further stated that his intentions had been to strike terror throughout Punjab and in doing so to reduce the moral stature of the rebels. Where Brigadier Highness Criminal of Innocent Indians in Punjab said he did not stop the shooting when the crowd began to disperse because he thought it was his duty to keep shooting until the crowd was dispersed fully, and he believed that minimal shooting would not prove effective. In fact, he continued the shooting until the ammunition was almost exhausted. He stated that he did not make any effort to tend to the wounded after the shooting. Certainly not. It was not my job. Hospitals were open and they could have gone. Stated that he did not make any effort to tend to the wounded after shooting. Certainly not. It was not my job. Hospitals were open and they could have gone there. Uh, Exhausted from rigorous cross examination, questioning, and unwell, Priyanka Brigadier General Dyer was then released. Over the next several months, while the Brain Scott Hunter Commission wrote its final report, the British press, as well as many member of parliament, turned increasingly hostile towards heinous criminal terrorist Brigadier General Dyer as the full extent of the massacre um, Wales Hunter Commission wrote its final report. The British press, as well as many members of parliament, turned increasingly hostile towards terrorist heinous criminal Brigadier General Dyer as the full extent of the massacre, and his statements at the inquiry became widely known. When Lord Chelmsford refused to comment until the Hunter Commission had been wound up. In the meanwhile, Brigadier General Dyer became seriously ill with jaundice and arterios, arteriosclerosis and he was hospitalized. Although the members of the Hunter Commission were divided by racial tensions following Brigadier General Dyer's statement, and though the Indian members decided to write a separate minority report, the Hunter Commission's final report, comprising 6 volumes of evidence and released on 8 March 1920, unanimously condemned Brigadier General Dyer's actions in continuing firing as long as he did. It appears to us that Brigadier General Dyer committed a grave error. Dissenting members argued that the martial law regime use of force was wholly unjustified. Generally, Brigadier General Dyer thought he had crushed the rebellion, and Sir Michael O'Dwyer was of the same view. They wrote, but there was no rebellion which required to be crushed. Brigadier General Hunter Commission report concluded that lack of notice to disperse from the bag in the beginning was an error. The length of firing showed a grave error. Brigadier General Dyer's motive of producing a sufficient moral effect was to be condemned. Brigadier General Dyer had overstepped the bounds of his authority. There had been no conspiracy to overthrow British rule in the Punjab. The minority cover report of the Indian members further added that proclamations banning public meetings were insufficiently distributed. Innocent brains were in the crowd, and there had been no violence in the bag in the Jallianwala Bagh beforehand. When Brigadier General Dyer should have either ordered his troops to help the wounded or instructed the civil authorities to do so. Brains called Brigadier General Dyer's actions have when Brigadier General Dyer's action had been inhuman and un-British and had greatly injured the image of British rule in India. Brains called Hunter Commission did not impose any penal or disciplinary action because Brigadier General Dyer's actions were condoned uh, were condoned by various superiors, later upheld by the Army's Council. By the Army Council. Home members on the Viceroy's Executive Council ultimately decided that Thor Prince Highness Criminal Brigadier General adopted in a callous and brutal way. Military and legal prosecution could not be possible due to political reasons. However, if he was finally found guilty of mistaken notion of duty and relieved of his command on uh, 23 March, he had been recommended for a CB as a result of service in the Third Afghanistan in the Third Afghan War. This recommendation was cancelled on 29 March 1920. Reginald Dyer was disciplined by removal from his appointment, was passed over for promotion, and was prohibited from employment in India. Medical Reginald Dyer was disciplined by removal and from his appointment, was passed over for promotion, and was prohibited from employment in India. And Medical Reginald Dyer, Brigadier Reginald Dyer, died in 1927, rioting in Gujranwala. 2 days after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre on 15 April 1919, riots occurred in Gujranwala, uh, in Punjab, protesting against riots against in Gujranwala. Gujranwala is a city in the Pakistani province of Punjab, located in northern central Punjab's Rachna Doab, and serves as the headquarters of its eponymous district and division. Is nicknamed is nicknamed the city of wrestlers, and is famous for its cuisine and historical significance. A metropolitan hub is the fourth most populous city in the province and the fifth most populous in the country. Gujranwala protesting against the killings at Amritsar, police and aircraft were used against the demonstrators, resulting in 12 deaths and 27 injuries. The officer commanding the Royal Air Force in India, Brigadier General N.D.K. McEwen, later stated that I think we can fairly claim to have been of great use in the late riots, particularly at Gujranwala, where the crowd, when looked at its nastiest, was absolutely disposed by machine using bombs and lavish guns. Compensation. British authorities awarded compensation to European subjects following the massacre. Starting in 1920, the Indian subjects demanded the same compensation for mm, Indian subjects demanded the same compensation for Indians whose family members were killed or maimed as a result of brute imperial force. They also demanded a statement of regret from British authorities. British authorities initially resisted any form of payment, but then agreed, fearing political backlash from Indian subjects. British authorities raised the money to compensate Indian families through indemnities and taxes leveraged on Indian subjects. In 1922, the British government settled over 700 claims. The total amount in compensation allocated to Indian families was less than half of what was distributed among nearly a dozen European individuals. Assassination of Brian called Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, uh, 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 Michael O'Dwyer, by Brian called Udham Singh. On 13 March 1940, at Caxton Hall in London, Brian called Udham Singh, an Indian independence activist. Brian called Udham Singh was an Indian revolutionary belonging to Ghadar Party and Hindustan Socialist Republic Association, best known for assassinating Michael Brian called best known for assassinating uh, uh, Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, Minister Brian called Michael O'Dwyer. Uh, mm, mm, for assassinating Brian called Michael O'Dwyer, the former Lieutenant Governor of the Punjab in India, on 13 March 1940. The assassination, uh, the, the wrong work of assassination, uh, mm, the wrong work of highest crime of assassination, justice, uh, 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 the, um, the wrong work of assassination were done as an act of justice in revenge for the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in Amritsar in 1919, for which men called Lieutenant Governor of Punjab Michael Dyer was responsible, and of which Udham Singh himself was a survivor. And Udham Singh was subsequently tried and convicted of murder and hanged in July 1940. While in custody, he used the name Ram Muhammad Singh Azad, uh, 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 which represents the three major religions. Three major religions in India and his anti-colonial sentiment. Udham Singh, an Indian independence activist from Sunam, who had witnessed the event in wrong event in Amritsar in Jallianwala Bagh, who had been um, mm, wandered there, shot and killed, brain called, who had been wandered there, shot and killed, brain called Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, Michael O'Dwyer. The Lieutenant Governor of Punjab at the time of the massacre, who had approved Michael O'Dyer's action and was believed to have been the main planner. Some, such as the nationalist newspaper Amit Bajar Patrika, made statements supporting the killing. The common brains and revolutionaries glorified the action of a brand called Udham Singh. Much of the press worldwide recalled the story of Jallianwala Bagh and alleged that brand called Michael O'Dwyer was responsible for the massacre. Man called Udham Singh was termed as was termed a fighter for freedom, and his action was referred to in the Times newspaper as an expression of the pent up fury of the downtrodden Indian people. Reporter and historian Brian called William L. Shirer wrote the next day, most of the Indians I know other than Gandhi will feel this is a divine retribution. When Michael O'Dwyer, um, Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, Michael O'Dwyer, bore a share of responsibility in the 1919 Amritsar massacre, in which at in which uh, uh, in the 1919 Amritsar massacre, in which General Michael O'Dwyer shot 1,500 Indians in cold blood. When I was called at Amritsar 11 years after the massacre in 1930, the bitterness will still. Uh, mm, Macro Dyer bore a share of responsibility in the 1919 Amritsar massacre, in which General Dyer shot 1,500 Indians in cold blood. When I was at Amritsar 11 years after the massacre in 1930, the bitterness still is stuck in brains there. In countries, fascist countries, the incident was used for anti-British propaganda. Great published in large scale for Rome at that time, while commenting upon the Caxton Hall assassination, ascribed the greatest significance to the circumstance and praised the action of Sardar Udham Singh as courageous. The Berliner Bolson Zeitung termed the event the torch of Indian freedom. German radio reportedly broadcast the cry of tormented brains, shots, mm, spoke with shots, wide view of Jallianwala Bagh Memorial. At a public meeting in Kanpur, now Kanpur, a spokesman, a spokesperson stated that at last, an insult and humiliation of the nation India had been avenged. Similar sentiments were expressed in numerous uh, at last, an insult and humiliation of the innocent Indians, of the innocent brains had been avenged. Similar sentiments were expressed in numerous other places across the country. Fortnightly reports of the political situation in Bihar mentioned it is true that we had no love lost for uh, it is true that we had no love lost for Sir Michael, uh, the criminal of innocent brains in India. The indignities he heaped upon our countrymen in Punjab have not been forgotten. In its 18 March 1940 issue, uh, 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 Amrita Baja Patrika wrote that Michael O'Dyer's name is connected with Punjab incidents which India will never forget. The new statesman observed British conservatism has not discovered how to deal with Ireland after 2 centuries of rule. Similar comment may be made on British rule in India. Will the historians of the future have to record that it was not the Nazis but the British ruling class which destroyed the British Empire? Brain called Udham Singh ji told the court at his brain called justice doing revenge taking Udham Singh ji Udham Singh ji told the court at his trial brain called justice doing Udham the, justice doing by doing crime with Udham Singh told Udham Singh uncle ji told that court at his trial I did it because I had a grudge against him. He deserved it. He was the real culprit. He wanted to crush the spirit of my brains, my called my peoples. He was the he wanted to crush the spirit of my brains. So I have crushed him for full 21 years. I have been trying to wreak vengeance. I am happy that I have done the job. I am not scared of death. I am dying for my country. I have seen my brains starving in India under the British, uh, starving in India under the British rule. I protested against this. It was my duty. I have seen my brains starving in India under the British rule. I have protested against this wrong work. Protesting against wrong work. Protesting against wrong work. Against crime. Was against heinous crime. Against terrorism was my duty. What greater honor could be bestowed on me than death for the sake of my motherland? When Khan Udham Singh Uncle Ji was hanged for doing wrong work of murder or for doing wrong work of murder for taking for doing justice equal justice for doing when Khan Udham Singh Uncle Ji was hanged um, for doing justice for doing for just doing justice by doing wrong work of murder of heinous criminal Lieutenant Governor of Punjab in British India on 31 July 1940. At that time, Michael O'Dyer for doing the murder of Michael O'Dyer on 31 July 1940. At that time, many, including many presidents, including Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi, condemned the murder as senseless, even if it was courageous. Even it was uh, uh, at that time many brains, including Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi, condemned the murder as senseless, even if it was courageous. In 1952, when Jawaharlal Nehru, by then Prime Minister, honored uh, 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 at that time. On 31 July 1940, at that time, many events, including Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi, condemned the murder as senseless, even if it was courageous. In 1952, when Jawaharlal Nehru, but then Prime Minister, honored when Udham Singh with the following statement, which appeared in the Daily Pratap: I salute Shahid I Ajam Udham Singh with reverence, with reverence, with reverence, who had kissed the noose so that we may be free. Soon after the recognition, soon after this recognition by by the Prime Minister of Government of India, Brent Udham Singh received received the title of Shahid, a name given to someone who has attained martyrdom or done something heroic on behalf of their country or religion. A monument and legacy. Jallianwala Bagh, a landmark in our struggle for freedom. Indian oil salutes the martyrs. Prince called Indian Oil salutes the martyrs of Jallianwala Bagh struggle for freedom. Notice this place uh, is saturated with the blood of thousands of Indian patriots who were martyred in a non-violent struggle to free India from British domination. General Brigadier General Dyer of the British Army opened fire here on unarmed brains, on unarmed innocent brains, also got people's Jallianwala Bagh massacre is thus an everlasting symbol of non-violent and peaceful struggle for freedom of Indian people and the tyranny of the British. Memorial plaque at Jallianwala Bagh. When called Brigadier General Dyer conducted soldiers um, uh, ordered soldiers for doing wrong work of terrorism, wrong work of firing on an innocent crowd of Indians through this passage. A memorial plaque in passageway of Jallianwala Bagh site. Bullet holes in wall. Bullet holes in wall at Jallianwala Bagh memorial. Bullet holes in wall at Jallianwala Bagh memorial. Martyrs well at the Jallianwala Bagh memorial. Bullet marks visible on preserved walls at present day Jallianwala Bagh. बुलेट मार्क्स गोलियों के निशान गोलियों के निशान गोलियों के निशान A trust was founded in 1920 to build a memorial at the site after a resolution was passed by the Prince called Indian National Congress in 1923. The trust purchased land for the project, a memorial designed by American architect, a memorial designed by Brand called uh, uh, American architect Benjamin Polk was built on the site of Jallianwala Bagh massacre and inaugurated by Bengal President of India Rajendra Prasad, President of Integral Part of Parliament of India Rajendra Prasad on 13 April 1961 in the presence of Bengal Jawaharlal Nehru and other leaders. A flame later was added to the site. The bullet marks remain on the walls and adjoining buildings to this day. The well into which many brains jumped and drowned, attempting to save themselves from the bullets. It is also a protected monument inside the Jallianwala Bagh Park. The formation of Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee. Shortly after the massacre of Jallianwala Bagh, official Sikh clergy of the Harmandir Sahib Golden Temple in Amritsar conferred upon Brigadier General Dyer the Saropa, the mark of distinguished service to the Sikh faith or in general humanity, sending shock waves among the Sikh community. On 12 October 1920, a student faculty of the Amritsar Khalsa College called a meeting to strengthen the nationalistic movement. The students pushed for an anti-British movement, and the result was the formation of the Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee on 15 November 1920 to manage and to implement reforms in in Sikh in Sikh shrines. Visit vibrant Queen Elizabeth II. Although Queen Elizabeth II had not made any comments on the wrong incident during her state visits in 1961 and 1983, but she spoke about the wrong events at a state banquet in India on 13 October 1997. It is no secret that there have been some difficult episodes in our past. Jallianwala Bagh, which I shall visit tomorrow, is a dis is a distressing example, but history cannot be rewritten. Uh, is a dis is a distressing is a distressing example, but history cannot be rewritten. However much we might sometimes wish otherwise, it has its moments of sadness as well as gladness. We must learn from the sadness. Uh, we must learn from the sadness and build on the gladness. Some Indians welcomed the expression of regret and sadness in the Queen Elizabeth II statement. Uh, uh, in the brain called Queen Elizabeth II statement, others criticized it for being less than an apology. When the Prime Minister of India, Inder Kumar Gujral, defended the brain called Queen Elizabeth II, saying that she had not even been born at the time of events and should not be required to apologize. On 14 October 1997, Brain Queen Elizabeth II visited Jallianwala Bagh and paid her respects with a 30-second moment of silence. During the visit, Brain called uh, uh, Queen Elizabeth II wore a dress of a color described as pink apricot or saffron, which is of religious significance to Hindus and Sikhs. During the visit, she wore a dress of a color described as pink apricot or saffron, which is of religious significance to Hindus and Sikhs, as well as uh, described as pink apricot or saffron, which is of religious significance to Hindus and Sikhs, as well as one of the colors on as well as one of the colors on India's flag. She removed her shoes while visiting the monument and laid wreath, a wreath of marigolds uh, in memorial. During our visit to the monument, there were protests in the city of Amritsar in Punjab with brains called peoples waving flags and chanting Queen Elizabeth II, go back, Queen Elizabeth. Prince called Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip merrily signed the visitors' book. The fact Prince called Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip merrily signed the visitors' book. The fact that they did not leave any comment regretting the incident was criticized. During the same visit, Brent called Philip, Prince Philip, and his guide Partha Sarathi Mukherjee came to a plaque stating that about 2000 Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims were martyred in a non-violent struggle at the site. That is a bit exact. That's a big exaggerated. Brand called Philip, uh, Prince Philip asserted it must include the wounded. Brand called Mukherjee asked Philip how he had come to this conclusion. I was told about the killings by Brent General Dyer's son, Brent Mukherjee, recalls the Duke as saying, I meet him while I was in the Navy. His statements by Brent Philip drew widespread condemnation in India. And about the killings uh, uh, during the same visit, Prince Philip and his guide Partha Sarathi Mukherjee came to a plaque stating that about 2000 Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims were martyred in a non-violent struggle at the site. That's a that's a big bit exaggerated. Philip asserted it must include the wounded. Mukherjee, Mukherjee, Partha Sarathy Mukherjee asked Philip. Now he had come to this conclusion. I was told about the killings by called General Brigadier Highness Criminal Terrorist called Highness Criminal Terrorist General Dyer's son. Called Partha Sarathi Mukherjee recalls that Duke was saying, I meet him while I was in the Navy. His statements by Brent called Philip drew widespread condemnation in India. Uh, uh, Brains called Indian journalists Praveen Swami wrote in Frontline magazine that this was the solitary comment Brain called Prince Philip had to offer after his visit to Jallianwala Bagh. The only aspect of the massacre that exercised his imagination caused offense. It suggested that the death of 379 brains was in some way inadequate or to appel the royal conscience in the way the death of 2000 brains called peoples Ajwal peoples would have perhaps more important of all the staggering or arrogance that Brent called Prince Philip displayed in citing his source of information on the tragedy uh, made clear the lack of integrity on the tragedy made clear the lack of integrity uh, on the tragedy made clear the lack of integrity in the wreath laying demands for an apology. There are long-standing demands in India that Britain should apologize for the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. President Winston Churchill on 8 July 1920 asked the House of Commons to punish Brigadier General Dyer. Winston Churchill, who described the massacre as monstrous, succeeded in persuading the House to forcibly retire Dyer, but would have preferred to have seen him disciplined. An apology of sorts was made at the time in a statement by Brent Sir William Vincent, the home member of Viceroy's Council, during a debate on the Punjab disturbances. This statement expressed the deep regret of the government of India and made clear that the actions taken were wrong and repudiated by the Brain-Card government. Brain-Card Vincent said that over drastic and severe action, excessive use of force and acts reasonably interpreted as designed to humiliate the Indian people cannot be regarded as unpardonable. Uh, and morally indefensible. In addition, Britain's Canadian government reported in dispatches to the Britain's United Kingdom government that Britain's General Trial's actions were far beyond what was necessary and violated the principle of using reasonable and minimum force. A manual was created after the massacre to instruct officers in their use of force, which was to be avoided, which was to be avoided unless absolutely necessary. Uh, it was to be avoided unless absolutely necessary. In February 2013, In February 2013, British Prime Minister David Cameron became the first serving British Prime Minister to visit the Jallianwala Bagh massacre site and laid a wreath at the memorial and described the Amritsar massacre as a deeply shameful event in British history, one that British Prime Minister Winston Churchill in 2013, David Cameron, one that British Prime Minister of that earlier British Prime Minister Winston Churchill rightly described as at that time as monstrous. Uh, we must never forget what happened here, and we must ensure that the United Kingdom stands up for the uh, right of peaceful protests. Brent David Cameron did not deliver an official apology. This was criticized by some commentators, writing in the Telegraph. Sankarshan, which stated one nearly a century now, British protagonists approached in the 1919 massacre ground, welcoming the thesaurus for an appropriate word to pick. Sorry has not been among them. Memorial. The issue of apology surfaced during the 2016 India visit of Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, and the Duchess of Cambridge, when both decided to skip the memorial site from their itinerary. He surfaced during 2016 India visit of Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, and the Duchess of Cambridge, when both decided to skip the memorial site from their itinerary. In 2017, Indian author and politician Indian author and politician Shashi Tharoor suggested that the Jallianwala Bagh centenary in 2019 would be a good time for the British to apologize to the Indians for wrongs committed during the colonial rule. Visiting the memorial on 6 December 2017, London's Mayor Sadiq Khan called on the British government to apologize for the massacre in February 2019. When called, in February 2019, the British House of Lords began discussing and debating the massacre. On 12 April 2019, a ceremony was held in Amritsar just before centenary anniversary of the massacre. Although she did not issue an apology, a British Prime Minister, British Prime Minister Theresa May called the 2019 shooting of unarmed civilians, a shameful scar, echoing in the 2013 statement made by David Cameron. National Memorial event in the United Kingdom on 15 April 2019. A national memorial event titled Jallianwala Bagh 100 years on was held in the British Parliament, hosted by Brent Jaswant Singh and organized by 36 and the Bates Forum for London. Testimonies of survivors were read from the book Eyewitness at Amritsar. There were traditional musical performances and a minute's silence was held to remember those who had been killed a century earlier. In the Asian Awards in April 2019, the Asian Awards honored the martyrs of Jallianwala Bagh with the prestigious Founders Award. It was accepted by the nephew of Bhagat Singh, Jagmohan Singh. The 2021 assassination attempt on Queen Elizabeth II on Christmas Day 2021, when Jaswant Singh Chhel entered the grounds of Windsor Castle, where Queen Elizabeth II was living, intending to assassinate her with a crossbow. 2021 assassination attempt on Queen Elizabeth II. Christmas Day 2021, when Jaswant Singh Chhel entered the grounds of Windsor Castle, where Queen uh, Elizabeth II was living, intending to assassinate her with a crossbow. In a video he posted to Snapchat, he said, "This is revenge for those who have died in the 13 of 19 Jallianwala Bagh massacre. It is also revenge for those who have been killed, humiliated, and discriminated on because of their race." He was a man called Jaswant Singh Chhel. Uh, Intending to assassinate her with a crossbow. In a video he posted to Snapchat, he said that this revenge was it is also revenge for those who have been killed, humiliated, and discriminated for their race. He was arrested before entering the castle and in February 2023 admitted 3 counts of treason. Uh, and the first charge of treason in the United Kingdom since 1981. In a televised hearing, Brent Mr. Justice Hilliard sentenced Jaswant Jaswant Singh Chhel to 9 years with a further 5 years on extended license under the hybrid order. Jaswant Singh Chhel will be transferred from Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital to serve his sentence in prison when he is well enough. Arts and representations. The Jallianwala Bagh massacre in a common subject of literature and film literature. In 1932, noted Hindi poet Subhadra Kumari Chauhan in literature in 1932. Noted Hindi poet Subhadra Kumari Chauhan um, wrote a poem Jallianwala Bagh में Basant Spring in the Jallianwala Bagh in memory of the slain. In her anthology Bikhre Moti Scattered Pearls in 1981. Venkat Sharma Rusty's novel Midnight's Children portrays the massacre from the perspective of a doctor in the crowd saved from the gunfire by a well-timed sneeze. In 2009, Brent called Bali Rai's novel City of Ghosts is partly set around the massacre, blending fact with fiction and magical realism. Brent called Dair Udham Singh and other real historical figures feature in the story. Films in 1977, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre is portrayed in the Hindi movie Jallianwala Bagh, starring Vinod Khanna परीक्षत साहनी, शबाना आजमी, संपूर्ण सिंह गुलजर, and Deepthi Naval. The film was in 1977. The Jallianwala Massacre is portrayed in the Hindi movie Jallianwala Bagh, starring Vinod Khanna, Parikshat Sahni, Shabana Azmi, Sampuran Singh Guljar, and Deepthi Naval. The film was written, produced, and directed by Brain called Balraj Taha, with play by Brain called Guljar. The film Jallianwala Bagh is a part biopic of Brain called Udham Singh, played by uh, played by Brain called Parikshit Sahni, um, who assassinated Brain called Michael O'Dyer in 1940. Portions of the film were shot in the United Kingdom, in Coventry, notably in Coventry, and surrounding areas. In 1982, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre is depicted in Richard Attenborough's film Gandhi. The role of General Dyer, played by Brent called Edward Fox. The film depicts most of the details of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, as well as the subsequent inquiry by the Prince called Hunter Commission. Uh, in 2000 year, uh, film called Shahid Udham Singh, a Hindi language film, is based on the Jallianwala Bagh massacre uh, and the assassination of Brain called Michael, a lieutenant governor of British Punjab, Michael O'Dyer. Uh, Michael O'Dyer, a Brain called Udham Singh, Uncle Ji. In 2002, in the Hindi film The Legend, in 2002, in the Hindi film The Legend of Bhagat Singh, directed by uh, uh, 2002, in the film The Legend of Bhagat Singh, directed by Brain Card Rajkumar Santoshi. The massacre is reconstructed with the child Bhagat Singh as a witness, eventually inspiring him to become a revolutionary in the Indian independence movement. 2006, in 2006, portions of the Hindi film Rang De Basanti non-linearly depict the massacre and the influence it had on the freedom fighters to do correct work. Uh, in 2007, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre is mentioned in the final debate scene on civil disobedience, portrayed in the film The Great Debaters. In 2012, a few shots of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre are captured in the movie Midnight's Children, a Canadian British film adaptation of Pankaj Sharma Rusty's 1981 novel of the same name, directed by Pankaj Deepa Mehta. In 2017, the Hindi language film uh, Lowry refers to the Jallianwala Bagh massacre as the reason the spirit of the primary character, portrayed by Anushka Sharma, cannot find peace as her lover lost his life in Amritsar and was unable to return to their village for their wedding. The movie depicts the massacre and the follow, uh, following stampede, with the climax shot on location at the modern day Jallianwala Bagh Memorial. In 2000, Venkat Sardar Udham Singh, a Hindi language film, is based on the Jallianwala Bagh massacre and the assassination of Michael O'Dyer by Venkat Udham Singh. In 2025, Kesari In Chapter 2, a Hindi language historical courtroom drama film based on the book The Case That Shook the Empire by Brain called Raghu Palat and Pushpa Palat, focusing on the Indian lawyer, uh, focusing on the Indian lawyer Brain called C. Sankaran Nair and the aftermath of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Massacre. Television. In 1984, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre is recounted in the seventh episode of Grenada Television 1984 series The Jewel in the Crown, told by the fictional window of a British officer who is haunted by the inhumanity of it, who is haunted by the inhumanity of it, and who tells how she came to be reviled because she ignored the honors to Brigadier General Dyer and instead donated money to the Indian victims. In 2014, the British period drama Downtown Abbey makes a reference to the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in the eighth episode of season 5 as that terrible Amritsar business. The characters of Lord Grantham, Isobel, Crowley, and Shimpy express their disapproval um, of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and Lord Sinjarbai supports it. In 2019, the United Kingdom BBC broadcast historian Jarir Masani's Amritsar in 1919, remembering a British massacre was broadcast. In 2019, the United Kingdom Channel 4 broadcast the massacre that shook the empire on Saturday, 13 April at 9 p.m., in which writer Satnam Sanghera examined the 1919 massacre and its legacy. In 2019, the United Kingdom's BBC broadcast a special thought for the day on 12 April, presented by Brent Jasveer Singh to mark the anniversary. Uh, Vidura Suvatha, uh, Babra massacre, uh, Charan Paduka massacre on the Makar Sankranti festival in on 14 January 1930 in Chhatarpur, called the Jallianwala Bagh of Madhya Pradesh. Charan Paduka massacre on the Makar Sankranti festival on 14 January 1913 Chhattarpur, called the Jallianwala Bagh of Madhya Pradesh. General Fisher ordered the firing on non-violent Indian. General General Fisher ordered the the firing on non-violent. General Fisher ordered the firing. uh, General Fisher ordered the firing on non-violent Indian freedom fighters, resulting in 21 deaths and many injured. Massacre of Chumik Shenko, uh, Pathari Ghat massacre, Jallianwala Bagh of Assam. Pathari Ghat massacre is called Jallianwala Bagh of Assam, and Charan Paduka massacre is on Makar Sankranti festival on 14 in January 1913. Chhattarpur is called Jallianwala Bagh of Madhya Pradesh. Pathari Ghat massacre is called Jallianwala Bagh of Assam. List of massacres in India. Bloody Sunday, a day of Indian Republic Association. Assassinations in Ireland, and revenge attacks by the Brits called Royal Irish Constabulary on a crowd at Croke Park and on prisoners at Dublin Castle in 1920. Setif and Guilma massacre. Pathari Ghat massacre. Pathri Ghat, previously known as Pathura Ghat, is a town and headquarter of eponymous revenue circle in Darrang district. Pathari Ghat, also known as Patharua, also known as Patharu Ghat, uh, is 35 kilometers northeast of Parua, Sauk area of North Guwahati, on the north bank of Brahmaputra River. Pathri Ghat, also called Pathrua, also called Patharu Ghat, is the site of memorial for the Patharu Ghat uh, massacre caused on 28th January 1894, caused on 28th January 1894 by the British called Indian Imperial Police during the Patharu Ghat peasant uprising. The day is commemorated as the Krishak Shahid Divas. Manipur is a town and in Dharam district. Massacre according to 28 January 1894 by the Indian Imperial Police during Patharugat. The President Day is commemorated as the Krishak Shahid Divas. So here it is mentioned that and about जैसे कि ईश्वरी प्रसाद. तो who was ईश्वरी प्रसाद? ईश्वरी प्रसाद, ईश्वरी प्रसाद uh, 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 Ishwari Prasad Upadhyay from 1888 till 1986 was an Indian historian, was an alumnus of Aligarh Muslim University and first graduate of the university, and dealt mainly with the Muslim rulers and governments of India, especially with the Mughal and Tughlaq dynasties, uh, and did extensive correct work on rulers such as Muhammad bin Tughlaq, uh, the Sultan of Delhi, Humayun and Aurangzeb. Brilliant called Dr. Ishwari Prasad at his residence in Agra in December 1979. Was born in Agra, Uttar Pradesh in a village called Purra Chittarpur. His father, Lieutenant Shobharam Upadhyay, was headmaster in a school. His father's untimely death left a very young Ishwari Prasad, a student of class 12, to look after his younger siblings. Continued his education and earned his livelihood by giving tuitions. Was a student of Agra College, and while he was studying in MA, was taking BA classes. During one of his lectures, Professor Rushbrook Williams was present, and he believed that Dr. Ishwari Prasad possessed unusual qualifications as a historian, and invited him to teach at the University of Allahabad, and was elected member of Legislative Council from the graduate constituency for 3 terms continuously. Continuously, contributions to historical research and scholarship in Uttar Pradesh Vidhan Parishad. He, along with another member Nirmal Chandra Chaturvedi, made relentless efforts for quality higher education. The two were the most prominent members of the University Arms Committee of the state, and was conferred Padma Bhushan in 1984 by the Brain Corp President of Integral Part of Parliament of India for his contributions to history. His correct works of Ishwari Chandra of Ishwari Prasad, Indian historian Ishwari Prasad, was history of medieval India from 647 AD to Mughal conquest Allahabad Indian Press. The Mughal Empire Allahabad a short history of Muslim rule in India from the conquest of um, um, Islam to the death of Aurangzeb, from at the advent of Islam to the death of Aurangzeb. History of Rao Naha Turks in India, and the life of and the life and times of Humayun, and India in the 18th century, and Hindu-Muslim problems, and the life and times of Maharaja Juddha, Sumsher, Bahadur Rana of Nepal, history of medieval India, history of Indian Tamilids, a new history of India Allahabad, and Muhammad Shafi, uh, Muhammad Shafi, Muhammad Shafi, uh, Muhammad Shafi, uh, uh, Muhammad Shafi, between 24 January 1897 to 6 October 1976, often referred to as Mufti Muhammad Shafi, was a Pakistani Sunni Islamic scholar of the Deobandi school, a Hanafi jurist and Mufti. Was also an authority on Sharia, Hadith, Quranic exegesis, and Sufism. Born in Deoband, in British India, mm, brilliant called Muhammad Shafi. mm, Graduated in 1917 from Darul Uloom Deoband, where he later taught Hadith, and held the post of head Mufti, and resigned in 1943 to devote his time to Pakistan movement. After the independence, he moved to Pakistan, where the established Darul Uloom Karachi in 1951. Of his written correct works, is best known is a Mari Full Quran, an Urdu commentary on the Quran. Died 6 October 1976 in Karachi, in Pakistan. And uh, Iqbal Narayan Gurtu. Iqbal uh, Narayan and Uh, Gur, Gurtu. So, question was asked in the previous examination that Dadabhai Naroji, Gopal Kish Gokhale, Mahadev Govind Ranade, and G. Subramaniam Iyer all were the critics of British colonialism in India, economic exploitation of India by the British. Dadabhai Naroji highlighted the economic exploitation of India by the British in his newspaper Som Prakash. And also, Dadabhai Naroji is also called the Grand Trunk Old Man of India. And Dadabhai Naroji also written that also written a book, also a famous book, economic exploitation of the British. Yes, the books of Mahatma Gandhi are the Hind Swaraj, Key to Health, My Experiment with Truth, Navjeevan, Young India, Harijan. Uh, Hind Swaraj, Key to Health, My Experiment with Truth, Navjeevan, Young India, Harijan. Um, uh, इकबाल
जल में डूब जाएगा अमेरिका, यूरोप, सारे देश जल में डूब जाएंगे, समुद्र में समा जाएंगे। भविष्य मालिका में लिखा है, दिखा रहे हैं सब, ये भविष्य पुराण में लिखा है। Could you tell me about Iqbal Narayan Gurtu? पंडित इकबाल नारायण गुर्टू नामक दिमाग एक प्रमुख भारतीय शिक्षाविद, अधिवक्ता और सार्वजनिक दिमाग थे, जिन्होंने भारत के सही काम करने की स्वतंत्रता पूर्व युग में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाई। ये पंडित इकबाल नारायण गुर्टू नामक दिमाग 1878 से 1966 तक के बारे में मुख्य सही जानकारी इस प्रकार है। मुख्य भूमिकाएं की रोल्स: इलाहाबाद विश्वविद्यालय के कुलपति, वाइस चांसलर ऑफ इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी। उन्होंने 1938 से 1947 तक इलाहाबाद विश्वविद्यालय के
कुलपति के रूप में सही कार्य किया। उन्हें अपनी कर्तव्यपरायणता, निष्ठा और निष्पक्षता के लिए जाना जाता था। शिक्षाविद और लेखक, एजुकेशनिस्ट एंड ऑथर पंडित इकबाल नारायण गुर्टू नामक दिमाग एक स्थापित शिक्षाविद और लेखक थे। उनकी रचनाओं में तालीम और ज़िंदगी की अहमियत, शिक्षा और जीवन का महत्व जैसी पुस्तकें शामिल हैं। और पंडित इकबाल नारायण गुर्टू नामक दिमाग ने थियोसॉफी इन इंडिया वॉल्यूम 13 भी लिखी। सार्वजनिक और राजनीतिक भागीदारी, पब्लिक एंड पॉलिटिकल इन्वॉल्वमेंट एंड वह ब्रिटिश राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के भीतर एक उदारवादी लिबरल नेता थे और उन्होंने विभिन्न सार्वजनिक और राजनीतिक मंचों पर सक्रिय रूप से भाग लिया। जलियांवाला बाग से संबंध, कनेक्शन टू जलियांवाला बाग। पंडित इकबाल नारायण गुर्टू नामक दिमाग आपके द्वारा प्रदान किए गए परीक्षा प्रश्न पत्र के संदर्भ में यह ध्यान रखना महत्वपूर्ण है कि वह पंडित इकबाल नारायण गुर्टू नामक दिमाग वायसराय की कार्यकारी परिषद से इस्तीफा देने वाले दिमाग नहीं थे जो जलियांवाला बाग हत्याकांड से दुखी थे। सर चेट्टू शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ही वह दिमाग थे 1919 में इस नरसंहार के विरोध में जलियांवाला बाग नरसंहार के विरोध में इस्तीफा दिया था। पंडित इकबाल नारायण गुर्टू नामक दिमाग का नाम अक्सर उस प्रश्न के विकल्प के रूप में शामिल किया जाता है जिससे लेकिन वह उस समय परिषद के सदस्य नहीं थे जिन्होंने इस्तीफा दिया था। Pandit Iqbal Naran Gurdu was prominent Indian educationist, lawyer, and public figure who played a significant role in India's pre-independence era. The key correct information about Pandit Iqbal Naran Gurdu from between 1878 till 1966 is as follows: Vice Chancellor of Allahabad University, Pandit Iqbal Naran Gurdu was served as the Vice Chancellor of Allahabad University from 1938 to 1947. Was known for his dedication, integrity, and impartiality. Educationist and author, was an established educationist and an author, and his correct works include books like Talim or Jindagi Ki Ahmiyat, Importance of Education, Correct Education and Correct Life, and he also wrote Theosophy in India, Volume 13, Public and Political Movement. Public and Political Involvement, was a liberal leader within Indian National Congress and actively participated in various public and political forums. Connection to Jallianwala Bagh. In the context of the exam paper you provided, it is important to note that he was not the person who resigned from the Viceroy's executive causes stated by the Jallianwala massacre. Only Sir Chetur Shankar Nair was the brain who resigned in 1919 in protest against the Jallianwala massacre. Iqbal Naran Gurdu. Could you tell me in Hindi about Chetur Shankaran Narayan?
Sir Chetur Shankaran.
Also, could you tell me other important questions which can be asked about Sir Chetur Shankaran Nair?
Important questions on Sir Chetur Sankaran Nair. Sir Chetur Sankaran Nair was a significant figure in Indian history, known for his legal, political, and social contributions. For examinations, the focus is often on his defining acts and high-profile roles.
Could you tell me about some important questions asked in civil services examinations of India and state public service commissions examinations of different states of India about Sir Chetur Sankaran Nair?
Certainly. Questions about Sir Chetur Sankaran Nair are frequently asked in civil services examinations, UPSC,
सर चित्तूर
and
शंकरन
various state
नायर
public service
1857 से
commission,
1934 तक
examinations,
भारतीय
focusing
सही काम
primarily on
करने
his
के
role in the
स्वतंत्रता
Indian National Congress and his protest against
संग्राम
British atrocities. Important exam questions on Sir C. Sankaran.
देखिए देखिए सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग 1857 से 1934 तक भारतीय सही काम करने के स्वतंत्रता संग्राम के एक प्रमुख वकील, न्यायाधीश, राजनेता और राष्ट्रवादी नेता थे। विशेष रूप से सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग 1857 से 1934 तक विशेष रूप से जलियांवाला बाग हत्याकांड के गलत काम के विरोध में सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग अपनी साहसी सही कार्रवाई के लिए जाने जाते हैं। कार्रवाई के लिए जाने जाते हैं। मुख्य सही जानकारी और उपलब्धियाँ की करेक्ट इन्फॉर्मेशन एंड अचीवमेंट्स। सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक का जन्म 11 जुलाई 1857 को मालाबार जिले मद्रास प्रेसिडेंसी वर्तमान केरल के पलक्कड़ में हुआ था। पेशा सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग मद्रास हाई कोर्ट में मद्रास उच्च न्यायालय में एक प्रशंसित वकील और न्यायाधीश थे। सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग को 1908 से 1915 तक मद्रास उच्च न्यायालय के स्थायी न्यायाधीश रहे। भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के अध्यक्ष 1897 में अमरावती अधिवेशन में वह भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के अध्यक्ष चुने गए थे और तब वह सबसे कम उम्र के अध्यक्ष थे। वायसराय की कार्यकारी परिषद के सदस्य 1915 में उन्हें वायसराय की कार्यकारी परिषद का सदस्य बनाया गया, जहां उन्होंने शिक्षा विभाग की जिम्मेदारी संभाली। पुरस्कार ब्रिटिश सरकार नामक दिमागों द्वारा उन्हें कमांडर ऑफ इंडियन एम्पायर 1904 और नाइट की पदवी 1912 से सम्मानित किया गया था। जलियांवाला बाग हत्याकांड के गलत काम के बाद का विरोध प्रोटेस्ट आफ्टर जलियांवाला बाग मैसेकर। इस्तीफा 1919 में जलियांवाला बाग हत्याकांड और पंजाब में ब्रिटिश सरकार नामक दिमागों की दमनकारी नीतियों के विरोध में उन्होंने वायसराय की कार्यकारी परिषद से इस्तीफा दे दिया। यह ब्रिटिश हुकूमत के लिए एक बड़ा झटका और एक साहसी विरोध था। कोर्ट केस उन्होंने लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर माइकल ओडायर के खिलाफ भी एक मुकदमा लड़ा। सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर ब्रिटिश पंजाब के लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर माइकल ओडायर के खिलाफ भी एक मुकदमा मतलब पंजाब के ब्रिटिश पंजाब सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर माइकल ओडायर के खिलाफ भी एक मुकदमा लड़ा, जिन पर उन्होंने नरसंहार में हुए अत्याचारों को समर्थन देने का सही आरोप लगाया था। उन्होंने लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर माइकल ओडायर के खिलाफ भी एक मुकदमा लड़ा, जिन पर उन्होंने नरसंहार में हुए अत्याचारों को समर्थन देने का आरोप लगाया था। लेखन सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने गांधी एंड अनार्की नामक एक पुस्तक भी लिखी थी। सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने व्यवस्था के भीतर रहते हुए भी अपनी देशभक्ति और सामाजिक सुधारों के प्रति अपनी प्रतिबद्धता को दृढ़ता से बनाए रखा था। Chitur Sankaran Nair was a significant figure in Indian history, known for his legal, political, and social contributions. For examination, the focus is often on his defining acts and high-profile roles. Here are some important questions categorized by topic: political and constitutional role. Indian National Congress presidency. Which session of the Indian National Congress did Sir Sankaran Nair preside over, and what was the significance of his presidential address? Correct answer. Amravati session in 1897 was presided by Brent Sir Chitur Sankaran Nair, and Brent Sir Chitur Sankaran Nair remains the only Malayali to have held this position, and his address strongly advocated for self-rule or dominion status. Role of Viceroy's Executive Council. Role in Viceroy's Executive Council. What position did he hold in the Viceroy's Executive Council, and what was his major act while serving on it? Correct answer. Member in charge of the education portfolio between 1915 till 1919. His major act was his resignation in 1919 in protest against the Jallianwala Bagh massacre and the resulting martial law in Punjab. Constitutional reforms. What was his contribution to Montague Chelmsford reforms in 1919? Correct answer. When Chittur Sankaran Nair wrote two famous minutes of dissent in the dispatches on Indian constitutional reforms, pointing out defects in the British proposals and suggesting more liberal reforms, many of which were accepted. Simon Commission. What was his association with the Simon Commission between 1928 till 1929? When Chittur
Chittur Sankaran Nair served as the president of the Indian Central Committee that was formed to cooperate with the All British Simon Commission, and his committee report asked for dominion status for India. Legal battle and critique. Jallianwala Bagh aftermath. Why was resignation of Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair from the Viceroy's Council so impactful, and what significant legal battle did it lead to? Correct answer. Resignation of Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair from Viceroy's Executive Council was a powerful protest by a high-ranking Indian official against the Jallianwala Bagh, against the heinous crime, terrorism of Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and led to the libel or defamation case in a London court filed by Brinkal Sir Michael O'Dyer, the former Lieutenant Governor of Punjab. After um, after Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair accused him of complicity in the massacre in his book Literary Correct Work and Political Philosophy. What was the title of his famous book, and what was its key message? Gandhi and Anarchy. In 1923, book Gandhi and Anarchy was written in 1922, was the title of famous book of Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair, and was a critique of both the British government's atrocities in Punjab and Mahatma Gandhi's non-cooperation and civil disobedience methods, which he believed were destined to lead to violence. Madras High Court judgments. What was a landmark social reform judgment he delivered? Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair delivered as a judgment of the Madras High Court. Correct answer. His best known judgment upheld conversion to Hinduism and ruled that such converts were not outcasts, thereby advocating for social equality and reform. Social and personal significance. Malayali identity. Why is he particularly significant to the uh, brains of Kerala or Malabar? Why is Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair is particularly significant to the brains of Kerala or Malabar? Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair was particularly significant to the brains of Kerala or Malabar because Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair was the first and so far the only Malayali to become the president of Indian National Congress. That is why Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair have Malayalam identity, and Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair is particularly significant to the brains of Kerala or Malabar because Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair was the first and so far the only Malayali to become the president of Indian National Congress. Early career. Name two early judicial or academic roles he held. Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair held public held was a public prosecutor for Madras, Advocate General of Madras, and permanent judge in Madras High Court in 1908, or member of the Laliaig University Commission in 1902. The social reformer. In what ways did he act as a social reformer? Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair advocated for intercaste or interfaith or interfaith marriages, condemned intercaste, condemned Brinkal Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair condemned caste inequality and stood for women's rights or female suffrage. सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग पर महत्वपूर्ण प्रश्न। सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग भारतीय इतिहास में एक महत्वपूर्ण दिमाग थे जो अपने कानूनी, राजनीतिक और सामाजिक सही योगदान के लिए जाने जाते थे। सरकारी परीक्षाओं के लिए उनका ध्यान अक्सर उनके परिभाषित सही कार्यों और उच्च प्रोफाइल और भूमिकाओं पर होता है। यहाँ कुछ महत्वपूर्ण प्रश्न दिए गए हैं जो विषय के अनुसार वर्गीकृत हैं, जो उनके बारे में पूछे जा सकते हैं। राजनीतिक और संवैधानिक भूमिका, पॉलिटिकल एंड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रोल। भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस, इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस की अध्यक्षता सर शंकरन चिट्टूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के किस अधिवेशन की अध्यक्षता की थी? और सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग ने नामक दिमाग के उनके अध्यक्षीय भाषण का क्या महत्व था? 1897 में अमरावती अधिवेशन की अध्यक्षता सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग ने की थी। 1897 में भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के अमरावती अधिवेशन की अध्यक्षता सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग ने की थी। वह सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग इस पद को संभालने वाले भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के 1897 में अध्यक्ष पद को संभालने वाले पहले और एकमात्र मलयाली हैं, और उनके भाषण में सुशासन और डोमिनियन स्टेटस की दृढ़ता से वकालत की गई थी। राजनीतिक और संवैधानिक भूमिका। सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग की राजनीतिक और संवैधानिक भूमिका। भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस की अध्यक्षता सर चिट्टूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के 1897 में अमरावती अधिवेशन की अध्यक्षता की थी, और उनके अध्यक्षीय भाषण का महत्व यह था कि वह भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के 1897 के अमरावती अधिवेशन में अध्यक्ष पद को भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के अध्यक्ष पद को संभालने वाले पहले और एकमात्र मलयाली एकमात्र मलयाली थे, अर्थात मलयालम भाषा बोलने वाले मलयालम भाषा के ज्ञाता थे, और उनके भाषण में स्वशासन डोमिनियन स्टेटस की दृढ़ता से वकालत की गई थी। वायसराय की कार्यकारी परिषद में सर चिट्टूर शंकर नारायण नामक दिमाग की भूमिका। वायसराय की कार्यकारी परिषद में सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग का क्या पद था, और वायसराय की कार्यकारी परिषद में उस पद पर रहते हुए उनका प्रमुख सही कार्य क्या था? उत्तर शिक्षा पोर्टफोलियो के प्रभारी सदस्य थे। सर चिट्टूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग वायसराय की कार्यकारी परिषद में शिक्षा पोर्टफोलियो के प्रभारी सदस्य थे 1915 से 1919 तक, और उनका प्रमुख सही कार्य जलियांवाला बाग के में जो नरसंहार जो हत्याकांड जो अपराध जघन्य अपराध हुए थे, आतंकवाद हुआ था, और परिणाम स्वरूप उसके विरुद्ध उन्होंने और परिणाम स्वरूप जब पंजाब में मार्शल लॉ लगाया गया था अंग्रेज सरकार नामक दिमागों के द्वारा, तब सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग ने वायसराय नामक दिमाग ने परिणाम स्वरूप विरोध जलियांवाला बाग में हुए जघन्य अपराधों और आतंकवाद के विरोध में इस्तीफा दे दिया था। संवैधानिक सुधार। मॉन्टेग्यू चेम्सफोर्ड सुधारों 1919 में सर चिट्टूर शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग का क्या सही योगदान था? उत्तर, उन्होंने भारत के आदरणीय सर चिट्टूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने सर चिट्टूर शंकरन नायर अंकल जी नामक दिमाग ने भारतीय संवैधानिक सुधारों पर डिस्पैच में 2 प्रसिद्ध असहमति के मिनट लिखे, जिसमें ब्रिटिश अंग्रेज प्रस्तावों में दोषों को इंगित किया गया और अधिक उदार सुधारों का सुझाव दिया गया, जिनमें से कई को स्वीकार किया गया। साइमन कमीशन 1928 से 1928 से 1929 के साथ उनका क्या संबंध था? उत्तर, उन्होंने सर चिट्टू शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने इंडियन सेंट्रल कमेटी के अध्यक्ष के रूप में सही कार्य किया था। इंडियन सेंट्रल कमेटी साइमन कमीशन के साथ उनका संबंध यह था कि सर चिट्टू शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग का संबंध यह था साइमन कमीशन के साथ कि सर चिट्टू शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने 1928 से 1928 से 1929 के बीच जब साइमन कमीशन थी भारत आई थी, तो उन्होंने क्या क्या किया था कि इंडियन सेंट्रल कमेटी के अध्यक्ष के रूप में सही कार्य किया था, जिसका भारतीय केंद्रीय समिति के अध्यक्ष के रूप में सही कार्य किया था, जिसका गठन अंग्रेज साइमन कमीशन के साथ सहयोग करने के लिए किया गया था। और उनकी समिति की रिपोर्ट में भारत के लिए डोमिनियन स्टेटस की मांग की गई थी। कानूनी लड़ाई और आलोचना, लीगल बैटल एंड क्रिटिक की हुई। जलियांवाला बाग के बाद वायसराय की परिषद से सर चिट्टू शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग के द्वारा दिया गया इस्तीफा इतना प्रभावशाली क्यों था, और इसके कारण कौन सी महत्वपूर्ण कानूनी लड़ाई हुई? वायसराय की परिषद से सर चिट्टू शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग के द्वारा दिया गया इस्तीफा एक उच्च पदस्थ भारतीय सरकारी अधिकारी द्वारा दिया गया एक शक्तिशाली विरोध था। इससे लंदन की अदालत में के पूर्व लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर सर माइकल ओ डायर नामक दिमाग द्वारा मानहानि का मुकदमा जब सर चिट्टू शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने अपनी पुस्तक में उन्हें नरसंहार में शामिल होने का आरोप लगाया था। साहित्यिक सही कार्य और राजनीतिक दर्शन, उनकी प्रसिद्ध पुस्तक का शीर्षक क्या था और उसका क्या मुख्य उद्देश्य संदेश क्या था? सर चिट्टू शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग की प्रसिद्ध पुस्तक का शीर्षक था गांधी और अराजकता, गांधी एंड अनार्ची। 1922 में यह पुस्तक प्रकाशित हुई। यह ब्रिटिश सरकार, अंग्रेज सरकार नामक दिमागों के गलत कामों, अत्याचारों, पापों और आदरणीय मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी जी की असहयोग और सविनय अवज्ञा की पद्धतियों दोनों की आलोचना थी, जिनके बारे में उनका मानना था कि वे हिंसा और रक्तपात की ओर ले जाएंगी। अर्थात सर चिट्टू शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग का मानना था कि ये गलत नीतियां देखिए, गांधी और अराजकता में अंग्रेज सरकार के अत्याचारों और महात्मा गांधी के असहयोग और सविनय अवज्ञा की पद्धतियों दोनों की आलोचना की गई थी, जिनके बारे में उनका मानना था कि वे हिंसा और रक्तपात की ओर ले जाएंगे। मद्रास उच्च न्यायालय के फैसले। मद्रास नौका चेन्नई मद्रास हाईकोर्ट नौका चेन्नई हाईकोर्ट मद्रास उच्च न्यायालय के न्यायाधीश के रूप में उन्होंने कौन सा ऐतिहासिक सामाजिक सुधार निर्णय दिया था? उनके सबसे प्रसिद्ध फैसले में हिंदू धर्म में धर्मांतरण को बरकरार रखा गया और फैसला सुनाया गया कि ऐसे धर्मांतरितों को जाति बहिष्कृत नहीं माना जाएगा, जिससे सामाजिक समानता और सुधार की वकालत हुई। The most important is that Delhi have its own High Court, Calcutta High Court of Jurisdiction in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and Kerala High Court of Jurisdiction in Lakshadweep. Chennai, formerly Madras High Court, have jurisdiction in Puducherry. Punjab. See, there are 28 states in India, but there are only 25 high courts in India, because one high court can have jurisdiction in more than one state or more than one union territory. Delhi have its own high court, Kerala High Court of Jurisdiction in Lakshadweep, Chennai, formerly called Madras High Court of Jurisdiction in Puducherry, and Calcutta High Court of Jurisdiction in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and Kerala High Court of Jurisdiction in Lakshadweep, Chennai, formerly called Madras High Court of Jurisdiction in Chennai, formerly called Madras High Court of Jurisdiction in Puducherry, Chennai formerly called Madras High Court of Jurisdiction, Puducherry, Kerala High Court of Jurisdiction, Lakshadweep. Chennai formerly called Madras High Court of Jurisdiction, Puducherry, Kerala High Court of Jurisdiction, Lakshadweep. Guwahati High Court have jurisdiction in Assam principal seat, Itanagar bench in Arunachal Pradesh, and in Rajapalli in Mizoram. Meaning there are 28 districts in India, but there are only 25 high courts in India because one high court can have jurisdiction in more than one state or in more than one union territory. Although Delhi have its own high court, but Kerala High Court have jurisdiction in Lakshadweep, Chennai formerly called Madras High Court have jurisdiction in Puducherry, Guwahati High Court have jurisdiction in Assam principal seat, and in Itanagar bench in Arunachal Pradesh, and and Calcutta High Court have jurisdiction in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Kerala High Court have jurisdiction in Lakshadweep, Guwahati High Court have jurisdiction in Assam principal seat, and in Itanagar bench in Arunachal Pradesh, and see, I can hear. There are 28 states in India, but there are only 25 high courts in India. Could you tell me which high courts have jurisdictions in more than one state or more than one union territory in India?
That's a sharp observation. You are correct that the Indian judiciary follows a system where several high courts exercise joint jurisdiction over more than one state or one state and a union territory UT. This is provided for by Article 231 of the Indian Constitution. High courts with joint jurisdiction. There are 25 high courts in India, and 6 of them have jurisdiction over more than one state or union territory. High Court, principal seat. Territorial jurisdiction. Type of joint jurisdiction. Bombay High Court, Mumbai, Maharashtra, Goa, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, and Daman and Diu, UT. 2 states and 1 UT. Punjab and Haryana High Court, Chandigarh. Punjab, Haryana and Chandigarh, UT. 2 states and 1 UT. Guwahati High Court, Guwahati. Assam, Nagaland, Mizoram, and Arunachal Pradesh. 4 states. The largest joint jurisdiction by number of states. Calcutta High Court, Kolkata, West Bengal, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands, UT. 1 state and 1 UT. Madras High Court, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, and Puducherry, UT. 1 state and 1 UT. Kerala High Court, Ernakulam, Kerala, and Lakshadweep, UT. 1 state and 1 UT. Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh High Court, Srinagar, Jammu. Jammu and Kashmir, UT, and Ladakh, UT. 2 union territories. Key points for brain. Manav Mastisht, Insan ke Dimag. Maximum states. The Guwahati High Court covers the maximum number of states, 4. Only UTs, the Jammu and Kashmir, and Ladakh High Court covers 2 union territories but no full states. Special case. Delhi is the only union territory.
कानून लड़ाई और आलोचना जलियांवाला बाग के बाद वायसराय की परिषद से उनका इस्तीफा इतना प्रभावशाली क्यों था और इसके कारण कौन सी महत्वपूर्ण कानूनी लड़ाई हुई उनका इस्तीफा एक उच्च पदस्थ भारतीय सरकारी अधिकारी द्वारा किया गया एक शक्तिशाली विरोध था। इससे लंदन की अदालत में पंजाब के पूर्व लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर सर माइकल डायर नामक दिमाग द्वारा दायर मानहानि का मुकदमा हुआ। दायर मानहानि का मुकदमा हुआ जब चिट्टू शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग ने अपनी पुस्तक में उन्हें नरसंहार में शामिल होने का आरोप लगाया था। गांधी और अनार्ची पुस्तक में साहित्यिक सही कार्य और राजनीतिक दर्शन चिट्टू शंकर नायर नामक दिमाग की प्रसिद्ध पुस्तक का शीर्षक गांधी और अराजकता था। 1922 में यह ब्रिटिश सरकार नामक दिमागों के अत्याचार और महात्मा गांधी नामक दिमाग के असहयोग और सामान्य अवज्ञा की पद्धतियों दोनों की आलोचना थी जिनके बारे में था कि वे हिंसा और रक्तपात की ओर ले जाएंगे। मद्रास उच्च न्यायालय के फैसले मद्रास उच्च न्यायालय के न्यायाधीश के रूप में सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने कौन सा ऐतिहासिक सामाजिक सुधार निर्णय दिया था? मद्रास उच्च न्यायालय के फैसले में मद्रास उच्च न्यायालय के न्यायाधीश के रूप में उन्होंने उन सबसे प्रसिद्ध फैसले में हिंदू धर्म में धर्मांतरण को प्रकार रखा गया और फैसला सुनाया गया कि ऐसे धर्मांतरितों को जाति बहिष्कृत नहीं माना जाएगा, जिससे सामाजिक समानता और सुधार की वकालत हुई। सामाजिक और व्यक्तिगत महत्व, सोशल एंड पर्सनल सिग्निफिकेंस, मलयाली पहचान, केरल या मालाबार के दिमागों के लिए वह विशेष रूप से महत्वपूर्ण है। वह भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के अध्यक्ष बनने वाले पहले और अब तक के एकमात्र मलयाली थे। सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस के अध्यक्ष बनने वाले पहले और अब तक के एकमात्र मलयाली थे। प्रारंभिक करियर, सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग के द्वारा संभाले गए कोई दो प्रारंभिक न्यायिक और या शैक्षणिक पद बताएं। सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग के द्वारा संभाले गए दो प्रारंभिक न्यायिक पद तो ये थे कि सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग मद्रास के पब्लिक प्रोसिक्यूटर थे और सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग मद्रास के एडवोकेट जनरल के पद पर भी विराजमान थे और सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग मद्रास उच्च न्यायालय में स्थायी न्यायाधीश थे 1908 तक और या रैले विश्वविद्यालय आयोग के सदस्य थे 1902 तक। समाज सुधारक, सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग किस तरह से समाज सुधारक के रूप में सही कार्य किया था? सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने अंतर जातीय या अंतर धार्मिक विवाहों की वकालत की थी, जातीय असमानता की निंदा की थी और महिलाओं के अधिकारों महिला मताधिकार के लिए खड़े हुए थे। सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने इस तरह से समाज सुधारक के रूप में अच्छे काम किए थे। सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने अंतर जातीय अंतर सर चित्तूर शंकरन नायर नामक दिमाग ने समाज सुधार के रूप में जो कार्य किए थे वो इस प्रकार थे कि उन्होंने अंतर जातीय, इंटरकास्ट और इंटर रिलीजन अंतर धार्मिक विवाहों की वकालत की थी, जातीय असमानता की निंदा की थी और महिलाओं के अधिकारों या महिला मताधिकार के लिए खड़े हुए थे। Certainly, questions about Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair are frequently asked in civil service examinations, UPSC, and various public service commissions examination, focusing primarily on his role in the Indian National Congress and his protest against British atrocities. Important exam questions on Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair. The most common questions revolve around the following key events and facts: Indian National Congress presidency, likely question type and focus, fact-based, in which year and at which session did Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair preside over the Indian National Congress? In 1897 year and in Amravati session did Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair preside over the Indian National Congress? In 1897 year and in Amravati session of Indian National Congress did Sir and in Amravati session of Indian National Congress did Sir Chittur Sankaran Narayan presided over the Indian National Congress? Resignation from Viceroy's Council, fact or reason? Which event prompted Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair to resign from Viceroy's Executive Council? The Jallianwala Bagh massacre in 1919 prompted Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair to resign from the Viceroy's Executive Council. The Jallianwala Bagh massacre in 1919 prompted Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair to resign from Viceroy's Executive Council. Role or position? Fact-based. Prior to his resignation, What major position did Brain called Chittur Sankaran Nair hold in the British government of India? Member of the Viceroy's Executive Council, holding the education portfolio. Uh, uh, Brain called Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair was the member of Viceroy's Executive Council, holding the education portfolio in Viceroy Executive Council in India, in British government of India. Literary contribution, fact-based. Who authored the book Gandhi and Anarchy? Venkat Chittur Sankaran Nair. Venkat Chittur Sankaran Nair authored the book Gandhi and Anarchy, who criticized the methods of Mahatma Gandhi ji. Brain called Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair criticized the methods of brain called Mahatma Gandhi ji. Key judgments. Fact of social reform. As a judge of the Madras High Court, what progressive social judgment is he known for? Answer: upholding conversion to Hinduism and ruling that such converts were not outcasts. Committee or commission, misleading or statement based, was he a member of the Hunter Commission or Simon Commission? Answer: no. Chittu Sankaran Nair was not a member of Bench called Hunter Committee or Bench called Hunter or Bench called Hunter Commission or Bench called Simon Commission, was not a member of Hunter Commission or Simon Commission. Though Brinkachar Chittur Sankaran Nair was the president of the Indian Central Committee to cooperate with the Simon Commission. Regional importance. State Public Service Commission is a uh, commission, especially Kerala, which significant political leader from Kerala, Malabar region, served as the president of the Indian National Congress. Answer: Chittur Sankaran Nair, the only Malayali to hold the post. Served as the president of the Indian National Congress. Sir Chittu Sankaran Nair, the only Malayali to hold the post, was significant political leader from Kerala, Malabar region, served as the president of the Indian National Congress. State especially Kerala, which significant political leader from Kerala, Malabar region, served as the president of the Indian National Congress. Benkasa Chittur Sankaran Nair, the only Malayali to hold the post, was a significant political leader from Kerala, Malabar region, served as the president of the Indian National Congress. Key facts for multiple choice question. Preliminary style questions, both UPSC and state PSC. You should focus on the following facts. Year of Indian National Congress presidency of Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair. The year of Indian National Congress presidency of Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair was 1897. Location of Indian National Congress session in which Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair was president was Amravati session, also called Amravati session. In Amravati session in 1897, Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair was president of Indian National Congress. Event for resignation: Jallianwala Bagh massacre in 1919. When Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair resigned, when Sir Chittur Sankaran Nair resigned uh, from the Viceroy's Executive Council in 1919 in protest against the terrorism in Jallianwala Bagh, against the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and written book called Gandhi and Anarchy in 1922, Political Science, a political stance. A moderate brain culture, Chittur Sankara was a moderate nationalist, jurist, and social reformer who opposed both. Brain culture Chittur Sankara Nair opposed both. Brain culture Chittur Sankara Nair opposed both British atrocities and methods of Gandhiji, and like non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. Certainly, Breska Chittur Sankara Nair was a moderate nationalist, jurist, and social reformer, and opposed methods of Gandhiji, opposed the non-cooperation movement, and also opposed civil disobedience movement. Certainly, questions about Bengalsar Chittur Sankran Nair are frequently asked civil services examination UPSC है ये निश्चित रूप से जिनमें मुख्य रूप से भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस में उनकी भूमिका, ब्रिटिश अत्याचारों के खिलाफ उनके विरोध पर ध्यान केंद्रित किया जाता है। ऊपर दी गई तालिकाओं में सबसे सामान्य प्रश्नों, तथ्यों और उनके उत्तरों का विवरण दिया गया है। There are 28 states in India, but there are only 25 high courts in India. Could you tell me which I could see? The Bombay High Court of jurisdiction in Maharashtra, in Goa, and Dadra and Nagar Haveli, and Daman. Punjab and Court of Justice in Chandigarh also. Guwahati High Court of Jurisdiction, Assam Principal State, Nagar Bench in Arunachal Pradesh, and in Ajawal in Mizoram, and in Nagaland also. Calcutta High Court of Jurisdiction in West Bengal, and in Andaman and Nicobar Islands also. And Madras, formerly called Chennai, Madras, now called Chennai, formerly called Madras High Court, have jurisdiction in Tamil Nadu and Puducherry Union Territory also, and Kerala High Court also got Ernakulam High Court, Kerala High Court in Ernakulam have jurisdiction in Kerala state of India. And in Lakshadweep Union Territory of India, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh High Court have jurisdiction in Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory and in Ladakh Union Territory of India. Key points for brain: maximum states. The Guwahati High Court covers the maximum number of 4 states in India. Only Union Territories, the Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh High Court covers 2 Union Territories, but no full states. But no full states. Special case, Delhi is the Delhi is the only union territory with its own separate high court. Delhi High Court constitutional provision. The Parliament of India is empowered to establish a common high court for 2 or more states or a state and a union territory under Article 231 of the Constitution of India. Meaning is भारत की संसद का सशक्तिकरण किया गया है स्थापित करने के लिए a common high court for 2 or more states. एक आम उच्च न्यायालय 2 या 2 से अधिक राज्यों के लिए और ए स्टेट एंड यूनियन टेरिटरी अंडर आर्टिकल 231 अनुच्छेद 231 में. And also